High energy, full with the wisdom, sense of a rich man, knowledge and the rhythm. This is what I'm using to come up with a style, so I'll interact altogether better with the crowd. Nervous for a second and the record starts spinning, and I fall into the state of matter what I've just created. Pumping like the doctor, D into the RE suckers ready to leap up on the tip when we high energy, full with the wisdom, sense of a rich man, knowledge and the rhythm. This is what I'm using to come up with a style, so I'll interact altogether whether I'm cooling or crashing. Cracking the concoction created by me. When read, you read, E equals a D-O to the C. Knowledge and the talent that my mother had born to her equals an artist that won't be worn. What is that, Dre? It's the formula.
You don't like to do? I know, that's all I'm gonna say.
It's like a message that only I can understand, but those who wanna comprehend will again be in the midst of the brother. Unlike another in any way, cause Trey don't play, say what the others say. Originality is a must whenever I bust. The funky composition is crushed, and I trust that you know it when you hear a funky record with potential. Me getting hyped with Dre rocking the instrumental. Nothing like what you've heard before and more, nevertheless. See, I don't fess, I mean I'm like fresh if not the freshest. When I'm expressing my thoughts on, Ronnie, you can help but listen up and get caught on. Because I cook when I pick up a pen and begin in the end, it's dope. That's cause I wanna win. Knowledge and the talent that my mother had born to her equals a duck. What is it, Dre?
Yo, man, that's the formula.
Dope as long as I can like imagine making each record that I do better than the last one. Take a little time, choose the topic and drop it, release it the signs. So making dope beats with rhythmic American poetry. Shifted the stations, now many people know of me. I'm the D into the O and the O into the C and the C into the period. Suckers are fearing this when the dope style calculated by the great. Wait and take just a second to get caught up in my record. New but not a kid to be born. If something's getting torn up, then I'm doing the tearing, not being torn. Shaping up to be one of the top vocalists, lyricists, and when you hear this, you shouldn't choke on this. Knowledge and the talent makes it valid for me to get it patent. Trey, tell them what I'm rapping.
The formula.
Let's go.
In effect, then I'm smooth. That's why I'm on the incline. Suckers fighting for nothing, cause I'm gonna get mine. It's in the cards, and I think I might have read this. So don't lie and try to front like.
Shout out to everybody in the building.
That it's a mission impossible trying to rock me. For an arena who that's me to perform for her Geo, and easily I flow when you know using a formula.
Yes. Shout out to the DOC. Shout out to the DOC, the doctor. That was one of the hardest albums in hip hop history. Straight classic. Brother career was cut short from drinking in an accident, right? But yeah, definitely the DOC. That's my water. Yeah, so welcome everybody to Chef Madness. I know I've been gone for a couple days, but I haven't missed a beat, right? I haven't missed a beat. We've been having a couple skirmishes here online. I done seen all of them. Shout out to everybody who in the building early, right? We're going to try to exhaust this conversation. Get a couple of the talking points out. I'm actually laying in the bed right now. So this is a makeshift show, right? I didn't go set up in the studio and turn the big computer on. I just grabbed my laptop, put a thumbnail together and said, man, I'm going to go live, because one of the main reasons that I'm going live is because I miss y'all. So I don't know how it sounds because I don't have my regular microphone and my desktop computer. I'm actually on my laptop and I'm using the laptop audio. So how do we sound right now, fellas? Is we good? Just making sure we good. Making sure my level's good. Alright. Good. That's what's up. Alright, so I don't have all of the super slick sound effects. I don't have nothing. It's just me, the computer, and y'all. Alright? So, today's Dr. Bernard tripping, right? So today's topic is modern scholarship corrects and makes clear the notions and hypotheses of the past. Now, as y'all can see from the thumbnail, right? I have modern academia smokes boots, right? And I have Dr. Sheikh Anti Diop, and I have a pair of his smoking boots, because modern academia, right? Academia has smoked Diop's boots, right? So it's two things we want to say before we get started. And I'm piggybacking off Unk's podcast from this morning on the House of Consciousness. Y'all go check that out. His morning show. Check out the morning show, y'all. Alright? And we should get a little crowd here today, because I seen tonight. I seen nobody was live this evening. Plus last night I wanted to go live because nobody was live, but I just couldn't muster up enough energy to do it. Alright? So, this community that we engage in, right, has a lot of notions of the past or older scholars' work that we're still holding up as being 100% accurate, right, or closer to the truth than what most people would lead us to believe. And that's far from the truth. The truth is that a lot of the books that we are reading, right, and people that we are citing had a political agenda to their writings, right? They were attacking a racist notion that black people didn't have a worthy place in history. Attacking an inferiority complex that was put on people of African descent. The scholars that we read or we cite was fighting against that racism, right? It seems as though that modern scholarship has removed most of its racial language, right? It has removed most of its racial language. So in light of that, we are able to look at history population groups and people exactly, for the most part, for exactly who they were, right? And who they are today. So, for the last couple of years, this has been one of our main arguments, right? It's been one of our main arguments because we're trying to promote, right, the modern scholarly opinion on said subjects and with all things, right? So the modern scholarly opinion on most subjects is in stark contrast to what the scholars that we hold in high esteem from yesteryear actually wrote and promoted. It is in stark contrast. Right? Now, two things could be at play. I always go back to there's two things in play, right? We always say that academia and science in this community, we say that that's ran by white people, that's white people information, right? And you can't trust the white man's information. So far as I know it, all scholarship, right? All scholarship that we use, even the ones, the scholars that we big up that are black, actually use the white man information to prove their points. Right? So if we claim that disagreeing with Sheikh Auntie Diop in them is anti-black, Sheikh Auntie Diop in them agreed with white scholars. They actually used white academia as their sources, right, to produce their hypothesis. They used the backing of white scholarship, right, to promote or to produce their hypothesis. Now, one of the main things that Diop used, and we're going to get into it. You say, well, what did Diop use to pretty much make his hypothesis? Well, like Unc said it earlier, he used an outdated racial model, right? The Cairo Symposium was 1973-1974, right? The problem is, in 1973 and 1974, that racial theory, right, was already thrown out. So Diop's sources that he used, just think, one of his greatest works was Civilization or Barbarism. And I believe that Civilization and Barbarism was written in the 1950s. Think about that. Civilization of Barbarism, let's look it up. I think Civilization of Barbarism was written in the 1950s. So if that was written in the 1950s, or most of his books was written in the 50s and the 60s, we can see that the sources that he used in those books was from the 30s and some of them from the early 1900s. Diop was having an argument from 1900 and 1974. So if we continue to use Diop's arguments, right, then us in 2023 is damn near 100 years behind modern academia and scholarship and science. I'm going to say it again. If we continue to use Diop's hypothesis, right, that was built off of racial connotations, from the early 1900s, then that means that our thinking and our scholarship is almost 100 years behind. Do y'all see what I'm getting at? All things in science and in academia and scholarship move forward. They move forward. We can show sources that Diop and them used from the 1930s, from the 20s, and 1900. This is the year 2023. It don't fit anymore. You're absolutely right. So let's get to this. Matter of fact, how is everybody doing? I didn't even speak to y'all. I apologize. I just came straight in bussing. I just came straight in bussing. Alright? Alright, let's see who in the building so far. We got my man Donnie Williams. Big up Donnie Williams. Keep the chat clean, Donnie Williams. You got that wrench for a reason. We got my main man, Pan African Design, is always in the building, right? My man, Pan African Design, Neanderthal James, is always ready to disagree with us, and we love to have you over here, brother. You definitely have a place to disagree over here. When you disagree, we all get better. We all sharp. The saying is, steel sharpens steel. All right? We got my man Shakira, North African Mike. What's going on, bro? Man, Shakira, he comes on every time I go live. He comes on. He's in the chat supporting. We appreciate that over here. All right? We got Humman 2.0. That's my main man, Humman 2.0 from Baltimore Park Heights. Stand up. That's my man, 100 grand. That's my homeboy. We go back to the sandbox together. You feel me? It's a crazy dude right there, y'all. Crazy dude. We got S Rush. What's going on, S Rush? S Rush said he can't watch the show. He gonna have to catch it tomorrow morning. Long as you catch it, that's what's up. We got Dr. Bunob in the building. What it do? We got Contrarian Thinker. What's up? Sonic. What's up? Where you been at? Infinite Wisdom. What's going on? Alright. Yeah, we all in here. We all in here. We all in here. Right? If y'all haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Alright, we got my man Abjuware. We got my man Unc, the God Killer, in the building. Hey, Unc, you gonna have to go back to Unc, the God Killer, right? People been getting out the gate on Bobby Banger, right? It might be the name. You dig what I'm saying? So you gonna have to get back to Unc, the God Killer, all right? The real black atheist. All right, the Bobby Banger, that was for a couple months, right? We going back to Unc. You dig what I'm saying? Because now you're starting to act like Unc again, right? When you were acting like Bobby Banger, bro, I couldn't rock with it. I felt as though you was all over the place. So I feel like last couple weeks, you've been getting back to Unc. You dig what I'm saying? So I'm going to keep you right there, Unc. Please don't go back to Bobby Banger. That Bobby Banger shit is horrible. The homie, what's up? Alright? Alright, so check the move. So, what did Diop get beat up on? Alright? Did Diop get beat up? Is a claim that Unc made, and people in the conscious community, Smash Rockwell and them, had disagreed with him. Right? They say Diop didn't get beat up. Alright? There's another thing Unc said. He said Wikipedia, right, is our first line of defense. first line of defense. All right, y'all? Wikipedia. Why is Wikipedia our first line of defense? Wikipedia is our first line of defense because the quickest way to catch some person is with an online encyclopedia. Alright? It's with an online encyclopedia. And Wikipedia has been stepping this game up from the early 2000s, and now it is on the same level as Encyclopedia Britannica. Alright? And it has sources, for most part, for the articles that we read, anything scientific and anthropological, most of those articles are actually vetted, right? So can't anybody go in there and change anything, and it's an editing process that goes along with that. So for the most part, if we disagree with Wikipedia, they even tell you when they don't have a source for a claim. All right, Wikipedia tells you when they don't have a verified source for a claim or statement in an article. It's another thing to tell you. You dig what I'm saying? To let you know that it is on par. So let's get into it. Remember, y'all, I'm laying in the bed. I'm not in my studio. I'm laying in the bed. I just wanted to go live. So the production might not be what it usually be, right? Because I'm on my laptop and I'm sitting up in the bed trying to get this done. All right, let's go. Boom. Bam. Put some light on me. All right, cool. Y'all see this? All right, let's get it. This is Wikipedia. This is the Black Egyptian hypothesis. All right, well, let's go down here, right? It says historical hypothesis. Now, what Diop put forth was a hypothesis. All right, Diop put forth an hypothesis. All right, and what did he put forth an hypothesis on? Because there was many different hypotheses, right? And you have what he put forth was the Black Egyptian hypothesis. There was also the Asiatic race theory, which was a hypothesis, the Caucasian / Hamitic hypothesis, the Taurinid race hypothesis, and the dynastic race hypothesis. All right? So, Diop put forth the Black Egyptian hypothesis. This is where Diop got beat up at, and this is what modern scholarship disagrees with Diop and smokes his boots vehemently on this point in the hypothesis right there. And this is the only thing that people in the conscious community hang on from Diop. And this is the main thing that came under scrutiny by the scholastic body that he presented it to. It was the Black Egyptian hypothesis. Alright? I'm trying to get all this on screen, and y'all read along with me if y'all can see it. Alright? Let's get it. The Black Egyptian hypothesis is the hypothesis that ancient Egypt was a black homogeneous civilization. Alright? Homogeneous. What does homogeneous mean? We're going to define everything tonight, so we won't be ambiguous. We won't have no ambiguity. Alright? All right, says it right here. Homogeneous, of the same or a similar kind or nature, of uniform structure or composition throughout, of uniform culture or composition throughout a culturally homogeneous neighborhood, meaning for the most part the same. So Diop claimed, right, that the Egypt, right, was a black homogeneous civilization, meaning an all black civilization. That's what they was claiming. All right, where did he claim this at? He claimed this at a UNESCO symposium in 1974. There was consensus that ancient Egypt was indigenous to Africa. Okay, so the consensus at the UNESCO, right, was not that Egypt was a black homogeneous civilization, right? At the symposium in 1974, the consensus, the scholarly and scientific consensus on Egypt was that it was an indigenous African civilization, not black homogeneous civilization. Do y'all see that? Let's highlight that right there. What is the sources for this? Right? You have Diop, 1974. Martin Bernal, Black Athena, right? 1987. All notes the hypothesis, right, or the position that Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop put forth. All right. Now, he put that forth at the UNESCO. UNESCO disagreed with Diop, and the UNESCO said that the ancient Egyptians wasn't black, but they were an indigenous African population and civilization. All right. However, Diop hypothesis that ancient Egypt was a black civilization was met with numerous objections in 1974, which revealed a disagreement which remained profound even though it was not voiced explicitly. Where was it not voiced explicitly at? It wasn't voiced explicitly in 1974 at the symposium. And we all went over why. So let's get into it. In respect to certain sequences, the criticisms arose out of the line of arguments put forward. The majority of the objections raised were of methodological nature, which ranged from the need for reliable statistical data to further research projects in several fields such as archaeology and physical anthropology before final conclusions on the peopling of Egypt could be made. So, they're saying that Diop arrived at a position without using the proper methodology. Do y'all get that? Diop arrived at a conclusion that Egypt was a black civilization, meaning a black people, right? Civilization, right? Without going through the proper methodology. The majority of the objections raised were of methodological nature, right? He didn't use the proper methodology to arrive at his conclusion. Do y'all get that? And then we sit here and say that he was not beat up. Well, I will say, if this is the case, he beat himself up. He beat himself up. Alright? So check it out. It says the majority of the objectives raised were of methodological nature, which ranged from the need for reliable statistical data to further research projects in several fields such as archaeology. He was lacking. And physical anthropology, he was lacking, before final conclusions on the people in Egypt could be made. There was also total disagreement from the majority of scholars in the 1974 conference on the hypothesis that ancient Egypt had been a homogeneous population until the Persian times, with several scholars favoring the hypothesis of a mixed population. Alright? So it said, he made another claim. He said that ancient Egypt was black, right, from 3400 BC up into the Persian invasion of Egypt. So he's saying for 3,000 something years, Egypt was unchanged from a black population, right? It was homogeneously black from 3,400, right, up into around 600 BC. Almost 3,000 years. Now, if we know where Egypt is at the crossroads of three continents, right? Is at the mouth of the western part of the Mediterranean, bordering on Europe, right? And to its west, it borders Asia, and Black Africa is to the south of Egypt. So, right there, Diop said that for 3,000 years, Egypt has stayed black. Not barring its geographical location, right? Now, we have scholars, right, that I don't particularly hold too much stock in, but we have black scholars, right, that we hold in high esteem that even disagrees with that point. We can pull up Chancellor Williams, and in Chancellor Williams, he notes that Egypt was always an area of contention between Black Africa and other groups coming in to Egypt and settling there, right? And he said that that issue goes back to pre-dynastic times. Chancellor Williams says that. So on that point, Chancellor Williams is in alignment with modern academia, and Sheikh Anta Diop is on the outs, even on that point. All right. Let me see. Are y'all with me so far? Y'all with me? Y'all still with me? Y'all go, hold on. So, right there, we see that the whole conference was in complete disagreement. So, almost everybody at the conference disagreed with Diop, right, on that Egypt remained a black homogeneous civilization for 3,000 years, from 3,400 up until around 600, right, BC, when the Persians invaded. Everybody at the conference disagreed with him on that. All right, let's keep cooking. All right, the majority. All right, let me see. where was we at? There was also total disagreement from the majority of scholars in the 1974 conference on the hypothesis that ancient Egypt had been an homogeneous population until Persian times, with several scholars favoring the hypothesis of a mixed population. Alright? So we got two things with Diop. It was his methodology, right? And anthropology. And, hold on, let's go back up to it. And archaeology and physical anthropology, right? They said his methodology was off there. Now, historically, right? Him stating that Egypt was homogeneous and he gave a time period. Now, historically, we know he's fucking up there. So he messed up in the archaeological department with his methodology and his physical anthropology because he didn't have enough data to even arrive at his position, right? Then he messed up historically, right? So right now we're seeing that Diop is having all kind of issues from the onslaught. From the onstart, he had an uphill battle already. All right. Subsequent reviewers of the 1974 symposium, debate, and the UNESCO publication have presented a range of views on the outcome of the debate. All right. So this is saying after the debate in the 1974 symposium, right? It said other scholars, come on, yo. Hate that shit. Alright. It's saying that other scholars, have mounted their disagreements. So it says subsequent reviewers, right? So other reviewers of the Cairo Symposium in 1974 on the people in Egypt, right? In that debate at UNESCO publication. So since then, other scholars, right, have presented a range of views on the outcome of the debate, right? One is Larissa Nordholt, right? Larissa Nordholt argued that Diop's chapter was politically motivated, having been published only due to being in line with UNESCO's political imperatives despite clashing with accepted historical methods and the standards of academic rigor. Wow. So she's saying that he didn't even do his due diligence. That's a word that or a phrase we like to use in the conscious community. I heard that be used over and over. Do your due diligence. She's saying that Diop didn't do his due diligence, right? He didn't follow accepted historical methods, and he didn't use academic vigor. He didn't flush out his argument. He didn't test that with verifiable sources that could correct his errors. He did not do his due diligence. This is what subsequent reviewers of the symposium is stating after they reviewed the notes of the debate. So now Diop's argument is on the table. Now all of the scholars can go back and read it and see where he was right and where he was wrong. And this is what they are saying about what he put forth in 1974. Diop cannot hide from what he put forth in 1974. It is out there to be critiqued by academia and all scholastic circles, and the weight of scholastic circles have weighed in, and he is wanting in academic rigor. Norho argued that Diop's views aligned with the decolonization efforts of the general history of Africa, but that he premised his arguments on outdated racialism, which classified humanity into distinct groups with a biological essence. However, she did state that the contributors did come to a general consensus that the Egyptians could not have been white in the same way that Europeans were. And the dissemination of Diop's ideas contributed to a wider recognition that ancient Egypt was an African civilization, although his methods were not considered entirely permissible by most of the other general history of Africa historians, right? So according to Larissa Norhart, many reviewers, however, still objected to what they identified as an overly political ideology within the general history of Africa. Look, Diop had a lot of issues here, y'all. And it is almost shameful that we put him up to get shot down nowadays. Yo, why y'all ain't tell me my picture was in the way of the reading material, y'all? Put it over there. Dang. Right? So, definitely don't want to do readership, but we're at a standstill, right? We at a standstill. This argument in dealing with our scholars of the past is a touchy subject. Alright? The pseudo killers started out to be that front line of defense, right? To offer purely just the scholastic viewpoint on science and history, right? The only thing we came to do from the onstart was just to promote, right, the most up-to-date and sound information presented by the academic and scientific communities, right? So when you seen us arguing, we were pretty much arguing to nail these things out. Hammer these things out, I'm sorry. Right? We was trying to hammer these things out. So where do we go from here? What did we learn? I can say some of the things that I've learned, right? I've learned that Africa was much more diverse, right, than I had previously believed, right? And from what I previously believed and what I previously was taught. All right? We was taught that Africa, right, was black, like us, from its most southern tip to its most northern tip. From its most easternly point all the way to its most westernly point, right? And everything in between. We was taught that that Africa was the black continent. That everybody who wasn't black were the result of, or the remnants of, invading populations from ancient times and colonial populations from modern times. This is what most of us was taught and believed, right? And school didn't even do a good job, right, for the most part, dispelling those notions. So we all learned this within the last couple of years. I'm sorry. We did. So it's time for everybody to get caught up. We're all learning together. Africa was not an homogeneous continent full of black people, with just black people. It wasn't. Neither was Egypt. We was taught a falsehood, right? We have been in error. We believe that the continent of Africa was wholly black until invasion and incursion by non-Africans who didn't look like the black population or the so-called black population of Africa. Do y'all agree? Now, some of us still hold to these same notions. Alright? Most of us still hold to these same notions. And it keeps us in error. We keep making the same mistakes. We're not looking at the diversity of Africa. We're not accepting the diversity of Africa. Right? So we're getting historical populations twisted. Y'all with me? Now, these scholars that we hold in high esteem, we tried our best on the pseudo killers when I was a part of the pseudo killers. I know I tried my best not to seem as though I was attacking these scholars. But it got to the point where I felt as though people was using outdated scholarship and scholars as a protection, as a shield against the onslaught of modern scholarship. So at that point, I felt as though we had to start shooting at the elders. Alright? Collateral damage. Right? The old skins have to be thrown out. Old skins can't bear new wine. Right? It was something that my grandmother used to say. Right? It was something like that. If anybody know that saying. You can't put new wine in old skins. Or something like that. Right? So it's basically what we're saying was that, you know, over time that old wine, right, deteriorates that old skin. And if you put new wine in it, I guess it'll spoil or whatever. So basically we are spoiling new scholarship by trying to make it fit into old, outdated parameters of race and fucked up readings of history. Alright? Yeah, I think that is from the Bible, chaotic. I think that is from the Bible. Now, these conversations pose, and these debates pose to make all of us sharper. Right? Shouldn't nobody get offended from these conversations. We just supposed to add on to it, right? It is not a complete loss of Diop and Chancellor Williams, right? They're not at a complete loss, right? I can still read Chancellor Williams and get certain things. His timeline of Egyptian history and his chronology is still on point. Do y'all know that? Chancellor Williams' timeline, right? And I'm a history buff. There's nothing wrong with Chancellor Williams' timeline and how he lays out Egyptian chronology. You can still read his book and see the framework that he laid his hypothesis over. The framework, the historical, right, chronology and framework that he laid his black hypothesis over is still sound. Alright? So it's not all a loss. Even Diop, right? Even Diop making academia look at Africa, right? And the African cultural connections with ancient Egypt, right? And not just look outside of Egypt for the origin of Egyptian culture. So now they look inside of Africa, right, for the birthplace of certain cultural practices of ancient Egypt. So everything that he did doesn't go out the window, right? But we have to be able to put things in its proper perspective. So are we saying that everything that Diop laid forth or Chancellor Williams laid forth is null and void? No. History doesn't even treat them as such. It's telling you where they have the issue with Diop and them is at the black Egyptian hypothesis. Is at the black homogeneous hypothesis. This is where they have the issue with Diop at. This is what should be thrown away. Not everything else. Are y'all with me? I'm offering an olive branch. Will y'all take the olive branch? If not, we can keep banging. If not, we'll all get put in a crazy position where we would have to be put in an uncomfortable position to try to prove race. And don't none of us want to go through the painstaking, arduous ordeal trying to prove that race exists. We're going to start pushing ourselves further back to 1900. Our community, the conscious community, will remain 100 years behind. Do y'all get that? We are 100 years behind the scholarly community. 100. Remember, Diop was using sources from the early 1900s and the 1930s. Civilization of Barbarism was written in the 1950s. He was using sources from the 30s and the early 1900s. Our current argument using Diop in them has us 100 years behind. Chill out, Lord Dog. It has us 100 years behind. It's time for us to catch up. Alright? Let's see if we can open up a chat. Now, that's not all I have, but anything else can come out in the subsequent back and forth that I have with anybody who wants to challenge the position that I laid forth. Right? Because I don't want this to get ugly for Diop, but it can. Alright, let me get my zoom up. Let's say zoom, zoom, zoom. Okay. Yo, I can't even start a zoom. Yo, go ahead. Alright, don't come up here messing with me. Move. Lay down. Alright, go lay down. Spot. Yo, they won't even let me start up a Zoom, y'all. The answer. Get away from me. Move. And what was you down there chewing on? You a billy goat. Oh, man. Yo, no Zoom. All right, hold on. I think I do it. I'm sign in from here. Oh. Yo, it won't let me update. Yo, what the fuck? Oh, yo, I should have tried this before. Yo, hold on, y'all trying to get this Zoom up. This is crazy. But are y'all with me so far? How do y'all feel I laid out the argument? Do we need to go any deeper? Do we need to open up wounds? Right? Tell me how y'all want to carry this. Because we can go. Alright, so I can't open up a Zoom, y'all. It won't let me do it. I gotta update. I gotta update my Zoom. Alright, so let's address the flip-flop. A flip-flop is a shoe that little girls wear, first off. Alright? When I was on Smash the other night, I asked a question about the article that he had up that said Negroid. It was a probing question. Let me let y'all into how I think, right? Kind of my fighting style, right? The question was actually to see if the source that was being used was actually a viable source that we should have been using in the first place. Because we know that modern scholarship, right, in anthropology doesn't use words like Negroid and Mongoloid and Caucasoid anymore. So that was the first sign that it was something wrong with the article. So I asked the question, right? If this is a scientific article, right, from a verifiable source and is using the word Negroid, right, then what we think about that stop sign that Unc was saying that we was running, I was saying that it seems as though that scientists is running that stop sign that you're saying don't run. So it was actually questioning that source. One thing I learned from being on the pseudo killers, right? One thing I learned from being on the pseudo killers is that your source better be right and exact, and you better have read that source correctly. One of the best things that I learned over there is that a pseudo dies at their own fucking source. That a pseudo dies at their own source. So I was questioning the validity and the veracity of the source that was put forth. I never looked into the source, but I knew it was something wrong with that source. I said, Smash, how old is that source? Smash said, this source is from 2004. I said, okay. That's within 20 years. The modern, anthropology was definitely in the play, right? It was definitely in play. So I said, okay, well, either Unc and them is wrong, because remember, their argument started on Brother Garfield's show. Y'all remember that? That's where they was arguing the source at. After that, they took the show, Smash started his own show, and continued to talk about it. Right? So, the whole time, we're questioning whether these scientists was using the melanin dosage test that Diop used to plaster whether the Egyptians was Negroid by the amount of melanin that was in the skin, right? And then the source that Smash put up said that, they had used a similar procedure, right? And in that similar procedure, you could measure, at one level, you could measure the amount of melanin in the skin, right? And that source had actually said that a certain amount of melanin in the skin would be consistent with Negroid populations. Right there, right? By it saying Negroid populations, Either it was an old or outdated uh, source, or the source wasn't valid in the first place. Now, I haven't been able to track down the source completely, but it actually comes from a website that used that source. And if I show y'all the website, y'all would laugh, smash out of the building. So we're not even going to put that website up. Alright? For right now, I'm trying to get alright, I have an interview mode on here. Since I can't do the Zoom, if anybody want to join my panel, I think I have room for 4 panelists. Somebody click the link. Let's see what we got. He's B Money said he's curious about the website. Is a link to join my show. And we got the first brother. Hush up.
Can you hear me?
Stu Peas, I can hear you. What's going on, bro?
Yeah. No, Sheffrey. I'm beginning to think that you're an asshole. You love. I am beginning to think that you're an asshole. Honestly, Sheffrey, you took away black. Now nobody saying black anymore. They're saying that Egypt. Nobody apart from Smash is saying black anymore. They're saying that the Egyptians are African. Remember, before you, the ones in Egypt were African. The ones in Egypt were black. Am I lying?
You said, hold on. You saying I said that the Egyptians were, say it again?
Africa. No, first they were saying that the Egyptians were black. And you took that away.
Right?
No, the Egyptians are African. And everybody pretend that they weren't saying that the Egyptians were black.
Right.
They came from the south. If you say that to people now, I always say that the Egyptians were African. As if you don't know what they mean. Smash still holding on to black. Are you taking that away from him? Right now he comes with Chef Amper. It's like I was on a show somebody used the term Africa already. And I said, you can't use that term. Where you get that term from? No scientist use that term. And the person continues to use it. The conscious community like to use mongoloid. No, the person is using mongoloid and Africoid. And you said, seriously? No, you're going to take no. Smash needs this, but leave Smash the melody. Because the melody don't mean anything either. Because you and I know East India, people from India, who is as dark as Sudanese. They're very dark Indian.
Hold on, they saying you echoing. Hold on, let me see what's wrong. I gotta use. Hold on, it's working. All right, now say something, stupid.
Yeah, mic check 1 2 3 1 2 3 mic check.
Is he still echoing, y'all? Go ahead, talk, stupid.
Yeah. No, they're saying the melanin, as if the part of Africa where the people are, they're not going to be as light as a German or a European, and you're going to have darker Egyptians and lighter Egyptians. The melanin don't prove anything. And when Smash brought up a source that said Mongoloid, no, that said Africoid, he should have dismissed that source because no modern scientists use that word. Am I lying?
Right. So it was something wrong with the goddamn source. That was my point. You feel me? It
That,
was something wrong
yeah,
with the source.
yeah, something must have been wrong with that source for them to use the word Africoid. What is an Africoid, by the way? You should ask him, define an Africoid. What does an Africoid look like?
Is another word saying Negro. Is another way of trying to say Negro. It's another way of them using a racialized term.
So, is somebody from Eritrea, Ethiopia, up in the hills of Ethiopia, would you classify them as Africoid?
Would I classify an Ethiopian as
Yeah, yes,
Africoid?
Eritrea, yes.
Me personally, I would, but I'm not an anthropologist.
Right? So if we have somebody from Sudan and
Uh huh.
somebody from West Africa and somebody from Eritrea, who is Africoid?
Name the places again.
Somebody from Nigeria, somebody from South Sudan, and somebody from Eritrea. Who's Africoid?
From the Sudan,
Yeah, Nigeria and
Nigeria, and
And
Eritrea.
yeah, who's Africoid?
Most people would say the Nigerian.
Am I am I on mute?
No, you good, brother James. What's up?
Oh yeah, I'm
Who's
tripping because
that?
it's saying like a little slash right there by the. But anyway, man, what's wrong
Yeah.
with you? I knew you was gonna do this, Chef. What did I say before the show? What did I tell you? I know you like the back of my fucking hand. I'm telling you. I already knew what this was. And I don't know if you are, let's see, I ain't trying to be offensive here.
Hmm.
But I don't know if this is just some kind of Baltimore shit going on where y'all got something with slow comprehension, or are y'all really this serious? Because those were primary sources that he showed. So
What's the
when you went
primary
to
source?
hold on. When you went to that's when we was reading with UNESCO,
Hmm.
that was the primary conclusions and stuff that it said. It said that he came with overwhelming evidence. It didn't say possible evidence or anything like that. That ain't what it said. I
Pull it
don't know.
up.
Maybe you was cutting hair. I don't know what was going on. But you need to go back and review. We was reading the actual conclusion from UNESCO. So what is you doing?
Hold
Pull
on.
it up.
Pull
Pull
it
it
up.
up, Jeffrey.
What you mean pull it up?
Pull it up.
Man, let
Where it
me go
said,
back. Well, hold on. So
where it
now
said, hold
I'm gonna
on.
be required to do jump through hoops to show you something that you should have already reviewed before you
No,
made this
no, no.
comment.
We getting clarity. We getting clarity.
So you
That's
didn't review the show? You didn't know that was that we was reading from a
no.
primary
I'm
document?
not. I'm not saying. Listen. I'm not saying it is or isn't it or it ain't. Right. I'm not saying either one. I'm
Hold on, but
saying.
check this out. Hold on. I mean, check this out, Chef. It also said that Diop was the one that said, "Hey, we just can't use this one little linguistics. It's going to take a multidiscipline analysis of all of the cranial and everything for us to come to this conclusion." He said that. So in your what you just read, you said like he didn't know that or didn't say that. So what are you doing? Like,
Hold
did
on.
you watch what we was listening to, or was you even on the show? Like, what's going on here?
Google
That's
Scholar
what I'm
already
trying to
let you
figure
know.
out. Because even that was primary what they were talking about. He said that no, you can't use one thing to make this. this observation of who these people were. He said it was going to take cultural, all of this to come up with the analysis. He said that you just read something that said that that ain't what he was with. So I'm confused.
You always confused. I don't know if
Man,
I can help
I don't
you.
understand this. This is crazy. You know what I'm saying? Because
I
we was
don't know if
reading
I can help.
everything the primaries. We didn't. This was primaries. But
All
now
right,
you
so
act like we didn't read that
all
shit.
right, so slow down, slow down, slow down. Read me where it's read where it says that he came with overwhelming. I'm
Let
not
me go. Let me, I'm
disagreeing.
finna mute out. I'm finna go back to Smash and Show and find that part, and I'll be right back.
No, go to the not with
No,
Smash
because
thing.
we were reading from the primaries, and then we'll read from that show exactly what he said. So just give me a minute, and I'll be right back.
So you don't have the source.
Yeah, it's gonna be. We read it the other day. That's why I don't even understand why you
I'm
niggas
not
didn't
disagreeing.
know.
I'm saying so the only way you can get to it is by going to Smash Show and looking at what he read, other than you just going to get.
No, because I mean, there's no need to do anything else. That we was reading from the primaries. We was all collectively reading that. What are you doing?
All right, go find it.
Golly, boy, this, I'm telling you, Baltimore taking major L's. I don't know what's going on with the school system.
All right, go find it. Google Scholar, what's up? Google Scholar, you can unmute mute if you there. Go ahead, CPs.
You see now the contention that you're starting.
No, James is always gonna have contention because it goes against his position, right? So he's always gonna look for it. And I threw out an olive branch already. See, and I knew they wasn't gonna take the olive branch, right? Already threw out an olive branch because they so dug in to their position that they can't even, right? They can't even help it.
Oh, I will argue this. Chef Antidiop was a man of his times. Will you agree with that?
That's a fact.
Right?
Yep.
And he made his conclusion based on the evidence that was available to him, or in spite of the evidence that was available to him.
Right.
Right? And now that we have technology, and now that we have moved almost 70 years in the future from his first book in the 50s, new knowledge has been discovered. Should we throw out the baby with the bathwater? Should we
Y'all
dismiss?
can't hear me now?
Google
Yes.
Scholar, yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What should we
I'm
do with
trying to
Chef?
figure this out.
What
Y'all
what
go ahead.
do you do with Anthony? What's your recommendation, Chef?
What should we do with Diop and them?
Yes.
I said it right before you clicked on. I said all of their work shouldn't be thrown away. I said I said for Chancellor Williams for one, I said his overall framework and historical layout of and chronology of history, right, is dead on. You dig what I'm saying? It's just
Yes.
he underlaid it with um a Black Egypt hypothesis, the same way Diop did with the thing like what you could take from Diop, right? So you could take the chronology, the historical chronology, right, from Chancellor Williams. From Diop, you can take using Africa, right, as a source for some of the origins of the cultural practices of Egypt, right? They accepted that from him. That's the part that was accepted from him. So we can accept it
Mm.
too. Listen, academia accepted that from him. The scholarly circles accepted that from him, right? And looking in at Africa as a source for some of the cultural origins of Egypt, right? So we,
Right.
in turn, we look at what the scholars say. That's what we go off of, right? And with Chancellor Williams, any history book that I look at, the chronology and history of Egypt, Chancellor Williams laid it out beautifully in line with academia. So you can look at his book and read it for that. But the moment he started talking about the black Egypt and the whole of Africa was black, Chancellor Williams, that's where he go wrong at. You feel me? Uh, Sheikh Anti Diop go wrong with his black Egyptian hypothesis, and that Egypt was homogenous from 3400 BC to 600 BC. He was wrong on those points. You feel me?
So where should we put him in the library? Where would you relegate those men in the library? If
I
you
don't
had a
even know if they.
library in your house,
I don't even know if they should be in your library. All right, and I'll say this, and this is because a conversation that I had with Unc, right? Me and Unc had a knockdown argument about a year ago, right? Because I had used Farrakhan as a reference, right? And we got into, I'm like, yo, if you can use Dr. Ben and them, I should be able to use Farrakhan, right? I'm not saying I agree with
mm,
everything that Farrakhan say, but it was a particular point that I agreed with Farrakhan on, right? And Unc
mhm.
said, yeah, but he make too many mistakes. So even though he's right on this issue, I can find somebody better than him to make the point. I accepted that shit from Unc. I said, yo, you're absolutely right. Why? Because if I use Farrakhan as a reference for something, somebody else might use Farrakhan, right, for that same reference, and then look into something that Farrakhan is in error on, and then start using the errors that Farrakhan made, right? So I say it's not good to use Farrakhan for nothing at this point. You dig what I'm saying? Because it's going to lead to more problems down the line. You feel me, stupids?
Yeah,
So,
but we can't
hold,
we
hold
can't
on.
we
So the
can't think
shake,
like that, Chef.
hold on.
Because look at it this way:
Go ahead.
was Einstein right on everything he said? Was Newton right on everything he said? No, they were not. Newton, at the end of his life, started to embrace spirituality. Are we going to dismiss his laws of motion based on the fact that he became spiritual later in life?
Yo, you
That he,
got great point. Great point. Great point. You got me. You got me.
right? So because what we can say is that we have other people. That's why when we use a source, you cannot use one singular source. Like people said English is a Germanic language. My belief is English is Creole because what happened with English is that all English was Germanic, but New English is 25% Germanic, 25% Latin, 25% French, and Greek and other things. Throw it into it. So New English, although it came out of Old English is not the dominant factor in New English. So I call it a Creole language. Other people say, no, you're wrong, stupid, you're wrong, because the source is Germanic. But if we look at how we use English now, most of the words are not Old English. So we cannot throw out the baby with the bathwater. If somebody if somebody says something, and we have more than one or two realistic, viable sources which back them up through science, through methodology, we have to agree with them. There might be 80% pseudo and 20% fact. We can still use the fact. So I wouldn't give on that point. Because was Dr. Ben right on everything he said? No. Was Einstein? No. Was Newton? No. Was Plato? No, but we use Plato. Was Socrates? No.
No,
What
I'm with
can
you.
discern the fact?
I'm with you. I am definitely with you. I'm trying to work this out. So we have Isonic. What's up, bro?
What is good? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. What's going on?
I Not much. I thought I had the link for one to just say what's up. I love your shows. You're doing a great job.
My man,
Um,
appreciate that.
Another thing is I always bug people in the chat, and one thing I want to say to ask on them is yes, I am from East Africa. I was born in Somalia. I'm not an Egyptian. I don't care about Egypt, but I do care about Africa. Okay, I care about
Okay.
Africa for the most part overall. Since I grown up in Canada, and I learned about how my let's say black family has suffered and what they went through, I
Mhm.
take a step back and I pay attention for the most part. So I don't like it in chat when people come in and they go at black Americans saying, hey, you're Bantu, you're not Egyptian. Well, you're right for the most part, but how do you know if they're Bantu or not? And I see a subtle racism coming in. So I want to stop that. It's a bit of a disrespect when you're coming at black Americans telling them who they are, referencing things consistently. That's my angle, because me myself, East African, I don't think I have the right to come to a black American and be insulting, knowing their history, what they've gone through. All I can do is appreciate, understand, and perhaps have a positive dialogue, if that makes sense.
Yo, I'm glad that you clicked the link. Yo, I didn't know that you were East African, right? So, damn, yo, we got so many questions for you. So, all right, boom. You from where
I'm from
again?
Somalia. I'm from Somalia.
Somalia. All right.
Yeah.
Somalia. So, do your people feel like they have a Egyptian connection?
No, the only ones that feel like that are the ones that are in the West sometimes that are lost, that haven't been educated. But the
Okay.
ones in Somalia, they claim Somalia. They don't care about anyone else. They're to a point that they don't even marry other tribes or even Ethiopians or anything like that. They intermarry cousins almost to a point where it's like we don't want no outsiders coming near us. So
Mm,
they don't give a fuck about Egypt. They look at Egypt as like another African country that's like our brothers. If there's support that we can give each other, sure. But there's no
mhm.
difference from Kenya.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
Where's
and I'm saying that
Somalia
as an educated
located?
person. It's in East
Where's
Africa, the
Somalia
Horn.
located? East Africa.
Yeah,
Is
the
it
Horn.
beside Ethiopia?
It's right beside Ethiopia, and part of Somalia is in Ethiopia. So a lot of Somalis do live in Ethiopia. The Oromos are connected to the Somalis originally, so they dominate Ethiopia. So population-wise, we're East African, and
Phenotypically, meaning what you look like. Do you look
yeah,
like the Sudanese or do you look like the Ethiopians?
the Ethiopians more like it, but depends who the Sudanese is, because Sudanese have different tribes, right? We're not the Nilotics,
Right.
but however, there are Cushitic people there that do look Somali that are in Sudan and in Aswan, Egypt. So it's
All
like, but
right.
they're not us. They're not us. They're a different tribe. They're whatever. They have their own history. They have their own intermixes. We don't speak the same language, but
Mm,
we connect with Ethiopia more likely. Ethiopians, the Oromo tribe, are a lot like us. We recognize different tribes in Ethiopia and say some of them are like us and some are not. We have a Bantu population in Somalia that are discriminated against. We can tell we're not the same because we do discriminate. I'll be honest about that. Historically, till this date.
good point. Good point.
So so the Somalian people differentiate among themselves tribally.
Do we consider
They
ourselves
know
like?
who they have similarity to,
Sorry,
and
can
they
you
say that
repeat
they're
that?
not Egyptians.
Yeah, no, we have our own tribe. Like we consider ourselves one tribe, like the Somali tribe that has sub tribes at the end of the day. So then through that sub tribes, we can identify and go all the way back to that one lineage of Somali. That's how we do it. Even it can be pseudo as hell, in my opinion, but we unite under that one Somali banner tribe, which then links to like sub tribes at the end of the day. But we're all at the end of the day consider ourselves the same people. Not Egyptian. We are not freaking Egyptian. We could care less about Egypt.
Oh man.
Oh,
Like,
oh,
come
I
on.
know. Oh, your person are the one who. I'm the captain now. That's what your people look like.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
the captain now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm the captain, right? Malnutrition, skinny ass, big forehead. That's us.
Okay. Yeah. Well, what's that,
I'm not
Captain?
disrespecting you. I was just trying to figure out. And I
Yeah.
remember.
Hey James, where you
Yeah.
at, James?
So
Yeah, I said I put the link in the chat.
For
Can you see
what?
it? Can you hear me?
and the
What?
timestamp.
Yeah, and the timestamp as well. Man,
For what?
this is now you don't want to see it.
No, I mean,
And the
listen,
timestamp of when we was reading what UNESCO was saying about what Diop brought to the conference.
yo, I just
That's the primary evidence. I mean, what you read was somebody's secondary opinion. We talking about what the primary said. So when we go into primary evidence, what they said about what he brought to the conference,
what they say. What they say.
it wasn't no conjecture and he might have brought the wrong thing. No, that's what they said. They said he brought overwhelming evidence, and we also read off in this little clip that he was the one that was pushing for a multidiscipline for the analysis. He was not saying that one thing was going to solve who the identity of these people were. He was
Yes,
the
he
one who
did.
pushed for that. No, he did not. If you would read what it says, you would read what he said himself. I mean, if you watch the video, I don't know what's going on. Like you
So,
must have been
so,
cutting some hair or something. I don't
so,
know
so,
what
hold
was
on,
going on, but you
James.
obviously missed when we read this.
James. So relax. So you're saying that Diop does not did not promote the Black Egyptian hypothesis?
Of course he did.
Okay.
But
So
what I'm saying is to make that analysis, he was pushing for multi disciplines to make the analysis. He was not saying, "Oh, we just going to use this, and then this is going to determine what it was." He
I
said,
never
"You're going to
said
need
that.
anthropology. You're going to need
Right.
everything." But in that article that you read, you made it seem as though that was not what he pushed in the whole conference. He was the one that was pushing for that. So I
All
don't
right.
understand what's going on here.
All right. Cool. So do Diop right? So you agreeing that he pushed for the Black Egyptian hypothesis, right?
Mhm.
And
He was absolutely correct.
do you agree that he pushed that Egypt was homogenous?
Yes.
All right. So those two things right there, he was absolutely wrong.
Well, according to who? And do
Of
you
course,
know? Watch
look,
this. Hold up.
hold on.
Watch this. Do you
No,
know? Now we have DNA to corroborate what he said.
all
So
right.
the brother that just said he was from where he said he was from, Somalia,
Yeah.
asked him what is this paternal marker. I bet he's
What?
gonna say it's E. He's gonna say it's E if he took a DNA test.
Hold
That
on.
comes back. I see what I'm saying. You
No,
don't you don't
no,
even know what's going on. The
no.
the DNA corroborates what he said later on. He didn't have DNA to corroborate his story, but we do.
All right. So look, James. So you just throw a whole bunch of stuff at the wall. All right. Let's
Mm.
go back to where we was at. All right. Now it says that Diop had said that Egypt was a black civilization and that it was homogenous for 3,000 years until the Persians came in. Is that what Diop put forth?
He put forth
Um,
a timeline of when the incursion happens, and then that lines up with the actual DNA that we have today as well. So I don't see what the problem is. You could actually use the DNA to see when the incursions of their incursion comes back in. You got to understand that 12,000 years ago or 15,000 years ago, it wasn't no light skinned G's or none of that shit y'all talking about.
we
So
no,
how the hell how you gonna say some people that's light skinned there when it wasn't even no damn light skinned
bro,
people
bro,
15,000?
bro,
I don't
bro.
understand what's going
We're
on.
not
But
at
Egypt
12.
didn't exist 15,000 years ago.
We're not at 12,000 years. We at Diop's standpoint of 3,400 to 600
Right,
BC. That's what Diop said. I,
right.
I don't know what you're talking about. I never seen Diop talk about no damn 12. 12,000 years ago, James. You just threw
Okay.
that in there.
Yeah, because I'm trying to teach you something about encouragement of non-African DNA. Now watch this. What is non-African DNA, Chef? Why you laugh?
I'm not even having a DNA
I
conversation.
know you don't want to have that discussion because non-African DNA is DNA that comes in outside of Africa. Do you understand that?
No,
I
I
know you don't.
yeah, I don't.
See what I'm saying? How did the people outside of Africa become Homo sapiens? How did that happen? Africans had to come out to give them the DNA. They wasn't Homo sapiens at first. They was something else. But see, y'all don't think. See, how you think? How did everybody become Homo sapiens, Chef? Just answer the question.
I don't
What
know.
does the DNA for Homo sapiens come from?
How do you always get every conversation down
Because
to
that's what y'all
Neanderthal
missing.
DNA?
Neanderthal.
You got Mota, which is the oldest ancient African DNA that they got right there in Ethiopia. What do they use to determine if he had admixture or not? Y'all don't want to deal with it. That's what's going on.
Chef, can we get
Neanderthal
enclose the link?
DNA turns you into something admixed.
Come on,
Without
bro.
any admixture, you are an African. Do you understand that?
Why are you doing this to
It ain't no
us?
more mixture you can get. Everything that comes out of Africa is pure until it mixes with something. If you look at
James,
the taxonomy of all species, you're gonna see what happens. Human, when they do admixture with humans, they're gonna tell you it's Neanderthal DNA and Denisovan DNA is the only mixture you can get with a human. Do you understand that? Y'all
no.
don't understand. Y'all don't understand what's going. Y'all shouldn't even be talking. You see what I'm saying? Because you got
James,
people on this planet that got 1 to 4% non-Homo sapien DNA on this planet. How do they got 1 to 4% non-Homo sapien DNA if we are the same?
James,
How?
I don't deserve this, James.
I know
Right?
you don't because y'all
Like
don't even know what
I'm
y'all talking
fair to
about,
you,
and y'all
James.
disagreeing with the damn scientists. That's what's
James,
crazy about this.
I'm fair to you. I always let you talk. I'm
I'm
never
okay. I'm
gonna
muting out. Go ahead.
no, and you always do this Neanderthal shit to me.
Yeah,
It,
because y'all don't understand what admixed humans are. Y'all don't understand. Those people that are there today are 2% Neanderthal. That shit wasn't even on the continent of Africa 3,000 years at that percentage. You gotta think. Use math. What's wrong with y'all? It's simple, man.
this shit ain't fair,
I bet
James.
you if y'all take a DNA test, y'all ain't gonna have 1%. I look at you right now. You light skinned. I bet you don't have a full 1% Neanderthal DNA in your genome. I bet you don't, Chef. I could bet you $100. You are of African descent, even though you admit. We can see it. So how much more percentage do we got to get before you become a non-African? Till you start looking like an Arab or a European? How much more percentage do we have to get, Chef? See what
How
I'm
do
saying? Y'all don't want to play. Y'all don't want to use math to understand this equation, but that's the only way you're gonna understand it. You become at some point non-African when you begin a certain percentage of DNA. Do you know that the people in North Africa are 70% European? You saying they African?
what the how,
The people in
we're
Egypt right
talking
now are
about yeah,
70%
bro.
European. Do you think they always been there at
Hold on.
70%?
Hold on. We're talking about Diop. Let's go back because you always go off on your tangent. Diop said that Egypt was a black homogenous civilization from 3400, right, up into 600 BC. That's the Persian era. That's what Diop said. Modern
Mm-hmm.
scholarship. Look at the title of my show. The title of my show says Modern Scholarship Corrects and Clears Up the Notions and Hypotheses of Our Past. That was a hypothesis that he put forth in the past, and modern scholarship clears it up. He was wrong. I'm not talking about 12,000 years ago. We're talking about what Diop put forth at the Cairo Symposium. He was wrong. What do you have to say about that, James?
I'm saying based on the new information that we have today, He was not wrong. What is the E marker?
Oh
You see
God.
what I'm saying? What do E mark? Where does the E marker come from? Like
Ngozi is on.
y'all ain't even took a
What's up,
DNA
my
test.
bro?
Bro, I'm 92% sub-Saharan
Yo,
African right now. Me.
hey,
And I've been
Somebody got
indigenous
help.
basically for 400
hey,
years.
James.
How am I
Hey,
retaining
James.
such a high level
James.
of how is that possible?
James. James.
Who is this?
Ngozi.
It's Ngozi.
Yeah,
What's
go
up,
ahead.
bro? Listen, assalamu alaikum to my Somali brother.
There y'all
He was
go.
right
Alaikum
about
salam, bro. How are you?
mashallah. But listen, let me just say this, bro. You gotta cut it out with haplogroups. Haplogroups only make up less than 1% of your DNA. That's a sex chromosome that doesn't recombine. So just because majority of the Egyptians carry Y chromosome E, that doesn't make up who they are or determine their race or their identity. For example,
You can
hold
use
on, hold on, hold
genetic
on, hold
markers
on, hold on,
to
hold on, hold on,
determine
hold on. Listen,
phenotypes.
listen,
Now
listen,
we're
listen,
not
listen,
finna just
listen.
let you just
Hold on,
come
hold
over
on,
here
hold
and
Hold
on,
on,
hold on,
let
act,
him
hold on.
act
finish.
like
Let him
these
finish,
genetic
James.
markers don't
Hold
mean
on, hold on,
nothing.
hold on,
That
James.
we're
Hey,
not
James,
doing
you can
that.
shoot at me. You can shoot at me once I'm done. I'm not
Go
gonna take
ahead.
long. So here's the thing. My Somali brother right there. I'm sure he's either EM78 in the form of EB32, which is common with Egyptians at EM78 in the form of EB12, or if he's part of the Don or Da'an Kabil, he's probably haplogroup T that's been in Africa for a long time.
Hell
But
no.
most of them
Hell no.
are EM78 at 80 to 70%. That's the same mark as the Egyptian men have. And they share common ancestors that was split a very long time ago. They came from North Africa and went south, even before the Somali became the pastoralist group that they descend from when they used to worship a god called Wak. So they have a layer of their DNA that comes from ancient Omatic and Nilotic people, but they also come from an ancient Paleo-Egyptian population that mixed way before they formed the ethnic group. But we have to understand something in evolution. You have parallel evolution. North Africans, their human leukoantigens, right, or their immunities, it responds more close to the population in the Middle East and the Near East than population sub-equatorial zones of Africa that we come from. So what I'm saying is that Egyptians are, and even the Amazigh people are completely North African. Their haplogroup means nothing. You can't use their Y chromosome to say that that links them to us because even our markers, E1B1A, it's been separate from E1B1B for almost 30,000 years when they both split from EP2. So there's a long line within the Elu gene or the yes associate protein that we call the YAP insertion that we have from the larger microhaplogroup E family, right? Then there's a difference between autosomal DNA and little set chromosomes. You got white boys with E1B1A in Texas. You can look it up. Would you say they black because they got a Y chromosome that's common in Nigeria or Ghana or Sierra Leone? No, you can't do that. So we're not going to use haplogroups to say who a people are. No, we can't do that. The Egyptians are the Egyptians, and we are who we are as Western Central Africans. And the East African is the East African. Like the brother said, he said he's not an Egyptian. Even though the Egyptian and the Somali are more closer to one another than they are to us because they have ancient ancestral ties and they're both part of the Afroasiatic language family. He's part of the Cushitic branch of Afroasiatic. The Egyptian they have their own zinc within Afroasiatic, just like the Amazigh people. So they have nothing to do with us, bro. The Egyptians are not, even if they got haplogroup E, it has nothing to do with us, bro. It doesn't. And you were also wrong. The Neanderthal gene that we find in North Africa also exists in the early Ibero-Maurusians. If you look it up on Wiki and type out
No. See,
Ibero-Maurusian DNA,
there
no,
you
no, no,
go.
no,
See,
no,
that's
no,
what
no,
I'm
no, no,
saying.
no, no,
See,
no, 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 no,
now we're
no, no,
not
no, no,
gonna
no,
do
no,
that.
no.
Now, hold
Hold
on.
on,
You've
hold
been
on.
talking for a minute, man. You talking about it in those time frames. You talking about the same
Listen,
amount of fucking Neanderthal DNA as I got
but
today. You need to
but
stop
but
that
hold
shit,
on,
bro.
but hold
Because
on.
that man,
But James,
they was
listen,
black as me right now.
James,
If I had to show
James,
how, I can show you what
James,
I am, and you can't even
but
see me in the dark. That's how
but
black
James,
I
listen,
am.
but
That's how
James,
dark them folks was. You need to cut
James,
that out. Don't. I'm not
James,
gonna let you keep doing that shit,
James,
Ngozi. The
James,
Natufians and all of those people did not have these fucking SLC genes and this
James.
fucking Neanderthal DNA and no 2%
Hey,
and
James,
no
look,
fucking 3,000
look,
years ago.
listen,
Now
listen,
hold
listen,
on. So you
listen.
saying 2,000, 3,000 years ago, Ibero-Maurusians and the Natufians had Neanderthal DNA and SLC gene. That's what you're saying at a
The, the,
2% clip.
let me answer your question. The
No, just say
Ibero,
yes or no.
I'm trying
Let's
to
see if
answer.
you're gonna do that.
I'm answering your question. If you go to Wiki, you can look it up right
If it'll
now.
get real complicated, because you
No, it's
know I
not.
know. You see, you can dance around with them because they don't know what the hell you talking about. But I know, but I deal with
Can I
dating and all of that type of shit. You
can
can't
I
get
can I
around the fact
can
that
I
that
hold
incursion
on, hold
of
on, look,
Neanderthal
look, look,
DNA
look,
is
look,
not
look,
found
look,
in
hold
Malta.
on, hold on,
Okay,
look.
well, what is
Okay,
Neanderthal DNA found in Malta?
let me answer your question. Can I talk?
See, exactly.
Can I ask you a question?
Why you
Please.
can't answer that?
The
That's what
Ibero-Mauritians
they
had
use
Neanderthal DNA.
to find the admixture that comes into Africa. Am I lying?
Can you let me talk, or you're not gonna let me talk? You asking me questions, I'm
Go
trying to
ahead, man.
answer.
I'm muting out.
Thank you, my brother. Alhamdulillah. So listen, the Ibero-Mauritians, you guys can type this up right now. Type up Ibero-Mauritians had Neanderthal DNA. The Ibero-Mauritians was in North Africa from 30,000 to 12,000 years ago. And Ibero-Mauritians, some of their ancestors came from people that came from the Zazana population who were Eurasians, who brought mtDNA U6 in. And they were closer to a layer of their DNA to populations that was in early Anatolia, right? Think about it. Before the Anatolians became farmers, if you look it up, they were closer to Villabrana man that they found in Italy. Some layers of their DNA. So these people already had Neanderthal genes in them when coming back into Africa. So when you look at the Ibero-Mauritians, type it up. Type of Ibero-Mauritians had Neanderthal DNA. You can see that they did. Then around 6,000 years ago, or 5,000 years ago, you had a population that crossed through Iberia Peninsula who were like the Anatolian farmers who brought more Eurasian genes into North Africa, and they got absorbed in. They were distinct from the temperate and Ibero-Mauritian population. In Egypt, you had a Neolithic Iranian component that drifted into Egypt 7,000 years ago. Even
At
before you had
2%. Hold
dynastic
on.
period.
Hold
Hold
on.
on,
At
hold on,
2%.
hold
Hold on.
on,
Hold
hold
on.
on,
At
hold on,
2%.
hold on,
Hold on. Just answer that question.
hold on.
You talking about at
Hold on,
2%
listen.
at this time.
Listen,
See, because y'all don't understand what he's doing. I'm answering the
listen.
question. You talking about they had
I'm trying,
2% Neanderthal
I'm trying,
DNA at 6
hold on,
and
listen.
12,000 years ago. Answer the question.
Listen,
See,
what I'm trying to say is
you
this,
ain't gonna
bro.
do it.
Listen,
Say, Chef. I got 0.2 Neanderthal DNA. Bro, you know what I look like? You
what
can't
that
even
mean?
see no motherfucking European or nothing in me.
What
So what
does
he's
that mean, though, bro?
doing is he's being disingenuous by even telling
What does
y'all
that
this
mean?
shit. At that time, them
What
people
does that
had
mean?
point something Neanderthal DNA. Point something means nothing. You have to have at least a full
What do you? Hey, bro.
percentage of
Hey,
that
wait.
shit or more for it start to affect
Where
your
you get that
genome.
from, bro?
He
Look.
knows it. He
Hey, James,
knows
type
this.
it up right now.
That's why he
James,
keep
type it up
doing
right
this
now.
to y'all. Y'all don't even know what
James,
he's
type it up
doing.
right
It's a
now.
shame.
James, type it up right now, bro.
Go
Type
pull
it up
up
right now.
Natufian
Type
DNA and see how much Neanderthal
type up.
DNA they say they
No,
have.
do
Go
me
pull it
that
up.
favor.
The
Look.
Neanderthal, watch this. Do Neanderthals are they
Hey,
the
James. Hold on,
predecessors to?
Chef. Hey, Chef,
Hold up, is
hey,
Neanderthal the
Chef.
predecessors to Ibermaroons? Yes or no?
He don't want to let me talk. Hey, Chef.
The Natufians predate the Ibermaroons.
Damn,
Do
bro.
Natufians have Neanderthal DNA in Gozi?
Chef, do me a favor.
No,
Chef,
they don't. I'm gonna answer the
do me a
question.
favor.
No, they
Hold
don't.
on, hold on.
So how in the hell do the
We gonna end it all
Ibermaroons
right.
got it if they predecessors don't got the shit? How?
Listen. Maybe if you let me
How do Ibermaroons
talk,
got it if Natufians their parents don't got it?
they
If you
have a
ain't
distinct
got
layer of
no damn
Eurasian genes.
Neanderthal
I can
admixture, you
explain
are
that.
an African. You not no
They
damn.
have a
You
distinct.
only become
They have a
admixed when you
distinct.
mix
They have a
with
distinct.
another
Hey, hold
species
on.
of human.
Hey, James, do me a
That
favor
is
while you.
just that cut and
Chef.
dry.
Chef, this is what I want
It's
you to
that
do.
cut and dry, bro.
Chef, this is what I want you to do, bro.
Mhm.
Chef, this is what I want you to do.
Go ahead.
While you're on your phone, right? Type
Right.
up Ibero-Mauritians here Neanderthal DNA, and I want you to read it to the public, so you can kill him. All this whining he doing ain't
And
gonna help.
watch this.
Wallahi, it's not gonna help.
The time frame
Wallahi,
he's
it's not
gonna
gonna
be
help.
talking about is gonna be 6,000, 3,000 years. It's not gonna be no 12,000 years. I
Oh,
already did
listen,
this shit in Gozi. You can't sit up and lie.
let
It ain't no incursion of no 12,000 years ago. And why? And if any
let Chef
percentage, it's
read,
gonna
bro.
be 0.2%. You just over here
Hey,
making
let
shit
Chef
up because
read.
people don't understand what you
Let
be
Chef
doing.
read. Let Chef read, and then you can say whatever. I want Chef to read. Type up Ibero-Mauritians had Neanderthal DNA, because this dude he's bonkers. Because I can explain what happened between the Natufians and the Ibero-Mauritians, because there was a distinction between those two, even though they do share a predecessor ancestor that split, but they also had a distinct layer of Eurasian DNA. But I'll let my brother Chef read before you keep talking,
Where
bro.
they get it from if they didn't get it through the Levant? What they got it from the peninsula over there in
Well,
Morocco. Okay,
the
that's what
basal
see.
branch of
That's
you
what it said
the
it came
basal
from. So see, I already know what's going on. They said it came
the
from there
basal
because it was absent in the fucking Levant.
the
Like you act like you the
oh
only
no
person who can read.
the basal branch of U6 that came into North Africa was found in actually near Italy and Rome 33,000 years ago. The basal branch of U6. So that lets you
That's
know
not
that,
Africa.
and there's a distinction between the Gravitine Eurasians or Europeans from the other layer of Europeans that were there, because even Europeans had distinct ethnic origins that make them up. So the Gravititian, who were closer to the Villabrana man, they were more closer to the population of Dizazana that crossed into North Africa very long ago than the Natufians in the layer of Eurasian. Now, the Natufians were mainly basal Eurasian. Basal Eurasians that split off.
Which is a hypothetical motherfucking population. They didn't have no admixture. You need to cut that out. Only thing they did was they had an allele switch because they was in the fucking the Arabian Peninsula. Just like Africans fucking mutated on the continent. They were still in the same equatorial zone, same sun region. So what would have made them so fucking different? Besides the Red Sea?
And
Nothing.
goes
The sun was still right there, just like it was in Africa. It ain't like they was way up in fucking Russia.
and goes
So
the
you need to cut
glitched
that
out.
out.
He glitched.
Yeah, I know he needs to bounce out. But see, I'm telling y'all don't study. Y'all let people like him come on and just be lying. Because if you got watch it, if you got 0.2% Neanderthal DNA, you're gonna look just like you look right now. You gotta have at least 1% of that shit before you start looking like an Arab or a non-African. But y'all don't understand what I'm saying. That is the only DNA that we could have mixed with that was outside of ourselves. It was Neanderthal and Denisovan. Until y'all get that shit, y'all gonna be lost. All that haplogroup shit, that's some bullshit. Listen to
Ja-
what I'm saying.
so James, that I don't get into all of the DNA talk and all of that, right? I'm still at Diop, right? Before
Mm-hmm.
you threw all that crazy ass Neanderthal shit into the conversation like you always do, right?
Yeah, because
I'm
y'all don't get
still
it.
listen. I'm
That's the
still
conclusion to what he was talking about, Chef. See, we got the DNA now. That's why I'm telling you about the E markers, because he trying to minimalize it. But everybody in Africa got E. It only comes from there. So how the fuck they get E?
James.
See,
Everybody is trying to tell you that those haplogroups do not determine who you are. But you are rabid about this at this point. You are
man, they
rabid.
are identification of phenotypical features, Chef.
They don't have phenotype with that. Haplogroup does not carry
No, they
no
are
phenotype with it.
genetics or they help identify phenotypical differences.
No, it does
Usually they
not.
do.
No, but
Oh
haplogroup does.
man,
Listen, James.
haplogroups don't.
Right. And you keep I can't do it with you. You dig what I'm saying? Like I'm going back to Diop, right? Because our disagreements supposedly have been in Diop. Health. All that genetic shit, you might be right. Yeah, I mean you and
Okay, well just play that video and that's gonna go straight to what
hold on.
Dion was talking about
You
without
and
nobody
Gotta take
interjecting his
that part
shit.
out.
Do that.
Huh? Do what?
The video I shared. You said that we didn't read exactly what they said in the conclusions and all the stuff that you said. You said that we didn't
Right.
read that shit as a primary
Listen,
source. Just play the
James.
video.
Oh, cool, James. We done moved past that. If you was listening
Okay.
from the beginning, right? If you was listening from the beginning, where you go ahead, James?
Well, I'm right here.
Oh,
Didn't
okay.
you tell me to go
Right.
get the
No,
video?
listen. If you was listening from the beginning, right? We already then went over that, and every show had went over that they said Diop and Obanga came well prepared and they brought overwhelming, body of work evidence to support their position. But it doesn't mean that the shit that they brought was accepted. You feel me? It doesn't mean that what they
Wow,
brought.
y'all some moving the goalpost type cats.
How was that,
Golly. So what are
James?
y'all doing that now?
James.
Why?
So you're saying with all that shit that they brought was accepted. It was not.
It was overwhelming. They couldn't go through it all.
Oh,
That's all it's saying.
yes, that's all. It was a lot. That's all it's
It
saying.
didn't say, but it's not saying that it wasn't accepted. It's
It
just saying that
wasn't
it
accepted.
was overwhelming. That doesn't mean that the information wasn't accepted, does it?
So now you about to argue that Diop Black Egypt hypothesis was fucking accepted at UNESCO,
See,
and we know it wasn't.
no, what they did was they made a concession
What was the concession, Mr. James?
because at first they was
Now
not
you
they was
making
not
shit up.
no, because at first it had nothing to do with Africans. They came to make to as the counter argument that said that yes, it does have. So they conceded that yeah, some of it was black, but still some of it was not black. See, that's what they did. They
Can I
compromised.
speak a little bit on this?
What was
That's what
that?
happened. It was a concession. But that
Google,
don't mean
sorry,
that they
go ahead.
concession mean that
James,
we gotta stop saying what he was
You
talking
hear
about.
me?
That's,
yeah, we can hear you, Google.
Yeah. I tried to listen to the video that James posted. I watched about 12 to 13 minutes of it, and they were reading through what looks like someone taking notes of the Cairo symposium with Dr. Diop on them. I didn't see anything in it speaking about them bringing overwhelming evidence. I'm gonna say um he made that part up, and if he
so you
didn't,
think I made that up, huh?
no, listen to what
You
I'm
didn't watch
saying.
the whole video then, because it
Listen to
definitely
what I'm
said that.
saying though. Listen to what I'm saying though. If you didn't make it up, I want you to point to this timestamp where they read that, because the timestamp that you posted does not have that in it. And like I said, I watched about 13 minutes of it and doesn't have that in it. So
And
if you
they
did
stopped
make it up,
reading. Did they stop reading, or what are you saying?
if you
That's where it
James,
stopped
if you
reading at.
James, if you didn't make it up, point to the timestamp and we
Okay,
can go
okay.
there.
Well then I'll be right back. Give me a second.
Because saying they bring overwhelming evidence, this is the English language. If you're saying they brought overwhelming evidence, you're saying they convince everybody based on the weight of the evidence, right?
Right.
So that did not happen
Hold on,
because
I'll
they
be
did
right
not
back.
agree with.
Don't worry about it. Peace. Hold
Yeah,
on.
go ahead, go ahead. So the conclusion of the Cairo symposium, they did not agree with Diop. As a matter of fact, they argued with him all throughout the symposium. So if his evidence was overwhelming, there would be no choice but to agree with him. So you could say he brought a lot of evidence, but to use the word overwhelming is saying they had no choice but to agree with the evidence. That did not happen. I'm saying James made that up. If he didn't make that up, go point it out, and I take that back.
Oh my God. Yeah, man. That James is a riot. Come on with it, James. Because
Yeah, because
it's not fair. But
it's a symposium, and they're trying to convince what was at the time mainstream academia to their position. At no point from that time forward has mainstream academia accepted the conclusions of Dr. Diop. So for James to say they brought overwhelming evidence, that doesn't make sense.
yeah, it's the same argument that the Dr. Sabiites use when they say that when he went to court, he they say he went to the Supreme Court and proved that he cured AIDS and he, all this crazy stuff. They're doing the same thing. Now Diop went to UNESCO and whooped them. That did not happen. He put forth a black Egyptian hypothesis that was rejected by mostly
Rejected.
all scholars that was there. That's what happened.
And it has been rejected since. There was no point where that has been accepted.
Exactly. And then, so we're on the same page. You know?
Yeah.
and
It,
that and
it,
that's
it,
what my show is about. It's about it's about even to this day modern scholarship, right? Is clearing up the notions and hypotheses of our past. These are things that we believed, right? Well, I know I did, right? But
And
then when you read the position of modern scholarship, it's saying that what Diop and them put forth, the scholarly community didn't even accept it back then. It's saying it, right? Like, so I don't know what James and
yeah,
you
and
know.
I didn't watch the entire show because the video is like almost 3 hours long. Looking at it, but like I said, I watched about 13 minutes, and I don't want to, almost don't want to say it because I like Smash and I respect him a lot.
Hmm.
But when I saw them reading, I didn't think they were comprehending what they were reading.
And that
I
was
don't.
the same thing that American Dream was arguing with them about
Are
on
there
a
minutes
previous
from that
show.
meeting?
Huh?
Are, is there minutes from the symposium? Anybody have the minutes
Yes,
of that meeting? Or it has
I
been
don't know if it's
lost?
a minute. I don't know if it's minutes, but it's like somebody's account of what happened.
Oh, oh,
I don't know
oh,
if it's
oh. So
minutes.
so there isn't any. So you mean that you had that symposium, which was supposed to be groundbreaking, and nobody was taking minutes of the meeting?
I'm not saying nobody was, but I'm talking about what they're reading seems to be somebody's account of the symposium, not actual minutes. Because if it was minutes, it would have to be taken by UNESCO because they were the organizers.
Right. So
Yeah.
UNESCO didn't print minutes because all right, all of us here has worked in some corporate at certain levels. And every meeting that I've gone to, there's always somebody taking minutes of the meeting.
Yes. No, I'm
Always.
saying I would assume there are minutes, but what they were reading, I don't think it was. I
No,
could be wrong, but
what I was reading, it wasn't minutes, it was somebody recollection of what was happening. It was almost like a reporter. And
yes, like somebody
it
doing a report. Yeah.
yeah, and it had a bias feel to it.
Yeah, but I don't know if it would be recollection because it's detailed. So it's probably somebody that went and and we're doing their own recordings, however they were doing it, because it's very detailed. No, nobody could recall that from memory based on what they were reading.
And Stupides, you say it was bias. Bias in whose favor?
No, when you listen to it, and it's because I think I got the document. I don't know what it is. I start reading it. If you read a lot, if you read a lot, it's almost like you start. I have a thing when I read it. It's almost like you're digesting the information. You start feeling it. You're thinking it. You're hearing it. You're hearing the speaker speak, although you're reading the words,
Right.
because it's not your words. You're almost
Is a
smelling
tone
it. You're
is a tone
almost
is a tone to it.
yeah, almost tasting it, and the tone don't feel right. It don't feel non-objective. I have never learned anything from one source. I always need two and three sources
Hmm.
because I read based on the tone of the writing.
Yeah,
That's
definitely,
what.
and especially when you're doing history, you have to you can't really make firm conclusion from one source. If you have only one source, you can tentatively accept something, but you always have to caution yourself that this is only one source.
Mm, mm, mm.
No, that's why I could tell Garfield that his book is a good book. It is no Odyssey. It is no Shakespeare. It's a good first book. His second book is going to be better because you begin to understand who you are as a writer,
Mm. Okay.
right? Because
Yeah.
you're not a writer until you write about 5 or 6 books. Then you can get how people. If I growing up when I was a teenager, I used to love Cindy Sheldon. You could tear off the name And once I start reading the book, I know that this is Cindy Sheldon. Right? If you type it without, because you understand the author, right?
Hmm.
That's why many teachers can identify plagiarism so easily, because they have seen the author so many times before that when they hear the wording, they say, "No, this is not you. I've heard this before." All they change
Um,
is to, "This is not you."
when I was going to school, right? One of my it wasn't like my favorite subject, but it was one of the subjects that I always did particularly well in is was literature, anything to do with literature. Because what happened is that I tend when I read I tend to get um I tend to get what the author is conveying most of the time. And what I find, especially when you're reading books,
Hey,
it is
bro.
yeah, it is dangerous to read books and take a piece of it because you can misconstrue what the author is trying to give you. You have to get the entirety of the what the author is saying, or at least a big enough sample of what the author is saying to see the argument they make on the conclusion they come to. You can't pick up a book and read one page and think you get what the author is saying. It doesn't work like that. 99 times out of 100, you're gonna be wrong on the conclusion, and that's what I see a lot of people pick out a particular passage and say this is the case, and they don't read the whole context to get the message that is being conveyed.
Read too much Bible, that's the problem. Read too much Bible verse. So you read one Bible verse, you think say some books work. You can read one stanza. You, you don't- listen, you don't even, when our people read, and I say this in particular with many persons who English literature was an important subject in school because it shows appreciation for what you're reading. Even poetry shows appreciation of what you're reading to understand the nuances of the language. That's why when somebody said, "Oh, that's why it's all right," like this argument now, say what's the Egyptian language has been deciphered. I have no doubt that it has been deciphered. But do we understand the nuances of the language that is written down? Do we understand what many of these writers were trying to convey when they say, when they use certain terminology? No, we don't know all the nuances.
Couldn't.
We
No,
take it
we
as
couldn't.
face value that this word says black land. But what we understand as black land might be something totally different than what the Egyptian was saying when he used the term black land.
Yeah, and that goes with all languages, especially with languages that are considered dead languages. You see, it's there's things that we call like euphemisms, right? They,
Right.
they they can be using a particular phrase to mean something totally different than what the actual words are saying. You know what I mean?
The same way we
Like
do in
Right.
our language,
yeah, same with
This
English. Yeah, you
because
when
it's a
you
living language. You can only
yeah.
pick that up
right.
if the language is living.
hmm So yeah, um, the decipherment is not gonna be 100%. It'll never be 100%. But I don't agree that it has not been deciphered. I
No,
think that
it has been deciphered, but the nuances has not been completely understood.
and it
Because
will
if you
never be
ask,
100. It will never be
yeah,
completely understood.
Hey, brother Chef, how y'all
right,
doing? I'm back. My phone dropped.
Go see what up.
How y'all doing?
We
Hey,
good.
I was gonna ask, did you look up the Neanderthals and Iberomarusians?
Yeah, I got it right here. All right, it
What did it
says
say?
research. It says the researchers additionally conducted direct genetic tests for Neanderthal admixture, and sure enough, they found that the Iberomarusians do retain Neanderthal DNA. Van Van D Lustrich explained that it was inherited as part of a law of their larger proportion of Near Eastern ancestry.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate it. So when
No,
he
no.
talk,
So no,
we
let me
really
ask you a
need to be
question. Hold
careful.
on, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Are you
Well,
agreeing with Chef that these people can be of Mediterranean origin based on the fact that the Neanderthals? Let me stop. Let me stop. Chef, let me stop. Let me stop. Because that sounds like
I want
it's
to hear
strengthening
what
your argument,
I
Chef.
want to hear what Ngozi has to say about this, because this
Go
is
ahead and
kind
go,
of
Z.
an
he
interesting
blacked
one.
out again. Shit.
You understand what I'm
Yeah,
saying,
because
Chef? If they have so much Neanderthal DNA in them that it could be identified from as early as 30,000 years ago, that means a migration from the Near East, the Mediterranean,
There
is
you go.
there.
He
has
back.
been happening even
Hey,
before
what
that.
up? What up?
But
What up, bro?
but
What's up?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Kick it.
You said who?
No.
No, I mean I just wanted to prove that point. Like these guys is they so messed up. I mean, I'm not talking to listen. The Egyptians are not black. They were not black Africans. You gotta let that shit go. They were not tropical adapted people. And we have to accept, okay, that's cool. That's cool. And we also got to accept the mechanism of within evolution, conversion evolution, parallel evolution, sexual selection that occurred for thousands of years. These people had a genetic continuity shared with people from all the way through the Lesser Caucasus, all the way through the Levant, all the way through the Near East in different phases for the last 23,000 years. So with that being said, you're not talking about a people that look like the people that we descend from or the people that we come from. The Egyptians were not a black African people. They are North Africans. And being North African, having West Asian genes at a high percentage comes by default. Not even by default, but this just the zone that North Africa is.
Right.
That's like the imprint or the stamp of being an African from that portion of Africa. You're not going to look at people that's like people south of the Sahara. You're looking at people that share more genetic affinities with populations in the Near East and other portions of Southern Europe that's been shared for thousands of years. And it only makes sense, even though there is distinction because of time where they're able to tell the segments or the layers that becomes its own independent cluster. But it makes sense once you break it down. They have genetic affinity shared with populations outside of Africa because you got to think, even looking at the Eastern Assyrians, that out of Africa population descent from, they were closer to the Hadza people. And the Hadza people are closer to the population that became non-Africans. Now, you want to base it off the small snip of CTM168 or the B marker that's found in them. And I don't want to base things off haplogroups. But Eurasian atom, which is the placement holder of CTM168, sibling branch is the B marker that the Hadza people have. And that's why geneticist says, like David Reach, that the Hadza are closer to non-African populations. And we know based off available data that population that split out of Northeast Africa that became the non-African
Who's the
population
answer?
at
Hold
the
on, brother,
earlier
brother,
phase.
brother. For layman like me, who are the Hazza people? Where are they located now?
The Hadza people today live in
Central Africa.
Tanzania, but the base population, you got to understand the reason why they give these nomenclatures to populations because they base things off the set of west where things are discovered at first. So the Hadza people have a layer that's shared with ancient North Africans and all non-Africans, and it's very distinct from other Africans. So it's not saying the literal
All
Hadza
right.
people
Okay.
are
I'm going to cut you several times. Non-African, define non-African and where the location of these non-Africans are. Baby want me. Hold my hand and
non-Africans.
baby want me.
Non-Africans start when you literally become non-African. It's population starting in the Levant all the way through Eurasia, North Eurasia, all that. They're all non-Africans. North Africa, but they're still Africans as a species because they're Homo sapiens. But
Yeah.
the population that humans split from to become non-African were already close to. Basically, ancient North Africans was already shifted to Eurasian anyway, because Eurasians split from them. Even when you look at terms like basal Eurasians, according to Razib Khan, when I asked him, they don't know if they're split between Egypt and the Levant or in the further portions of Iran or the Arabian Peninsula. They don't know. So that's why it's called a hypothetical population. So they call it basal Eurasian. But we do know everything that comes from mtDNA N without coming from R can be classified as basal Eurasian. And we do know that the population that was outside of Africa who found refuge probably in Arabian Peninsula, south of the Levant, and some of them back migrated into Ethiopia. Probably 23.
Pause. Based on Eurasian, we're talking to people them who look like the Saudi Arabians and the Iranians and the Syrians.
We don't know how they look.
Well, we don't know how they
No,
look, but we know that modern. Well, we don't know how they look, but we know that modern day Arabs, the people of Socotra, the people of Yemen, the people of Kuwait, the basal branch population in certain portions of Oman, they are closer to the Natufians who had this higher percentage of basal Eurasian DNA. So if you like, for example, if you put the Natufian samples that's been presented in G25 or use a PCA, right? It's gonna say basal. It's gonna say basal Eurasian and probably some Taparat and probably some ancient West Eurasian. But the higher percentage is going to be shared with basal Eurasians. If you look at the people of the Mahari or the people of Yemen or whatever, you put their DNA in the PCA, it's going to say Natufian, 67%, 70%. It's at a higher percentage. So we know that the basal Eurasians, they didn't have a lot of Neanderthal genes like the Ibero-Maurusians, because the Ibero-Maurusians, even though the Ibero-Maurusian and the Natufian shared base population that split affinities, they still were distinct in their Eurasian component. The Eurasians that the Natufians, that the Ibero-Maurusians mixed with is something that's classified as crown Eurasians that went past, they come from out of mtDNA-R. And out of mtDNA-R, you have mtDNA-U, U1, U2,
all
U3,
right,
U5, U6. The basal.
stop. Slow down. When you drop in the classification for the DNA, drop location too. Classification
Okay.
location. mtDNA R, which came from where?
Eurasia.
mtDNA, which came from for the layman like me who don't understand.
So mitochondrial DNA N came from mitochondrial DNA L3, but she has subclades like N1, N2, M3. Then she gave birth to XWI independently. But then you get R, who
And
also
where
comes
were
from
these
N.
located? Where were these
So
located?
R, so mtDNA R shaped somewhere in Arabian Peninsula east, and then mtDNA U developed somewhere in. So as mtDNA U go into Iran, a lot of these U markers start to go into the Caucasus, or like when you look at Kostiki man found in Russia, Kostiki man 14.
God damn it, Ngozi and his phone.
No, the reason why I wanted to do it that way, Chef, because in the past he's dropping it, but for layman's, like when he just said R found in Russia and found in XYZ, it shows a location where people migrated into Egypt to form the basic population. As you were saying earlier, that these population came out of the east and even the north and came down into Egypt prior to the Green Sahara. And then after the Green Sahara, they solidified in the Delta, formed their own set of people. And these people were, although they had admixture from geographically southern Africa, they were primarily people from Eurasia. Is that what he's saying? Or am I misinterpreting?
No, he's saying that they have a branch from those groups. You know what I mean?
Right.
That part of them, you know what I mean? You can see that admixture there, but we don't know what those people look like. Like, so that's the main part that we got to get out of our head. You dig what I'm saying? Is when we hear Eurasian, we're thinking of a phenotype, but we're talking something 20,000 to 30,000 years ago. We don't know what those people look like. We just find remnants of it in the DNA, right? They are markers, right? That gives no phenotypical bearings for anything. You dig what
But
I'm saying?
but but we also know based upon the skin map that was studied and based upon the location where the DNA originate from, that they might have different coloration in order to adequately survive in their environment. We cannot deny that.
No. We can't deny that. But we also have to realize that even our current morphology of Western Central Africans is around the
Different.
10 is no is around a 10,000 year adaptation also, right?
Right.
So
But,
you can't surmise that Western Central Africans looked it like we look now 20 to 30,000 years ago.
yeah,
That's
because
not even realistic.
geographically 10,000, 20,000 years ago, according to climatic weather, people look different. It was cooler. It was cooler in Africa at that time.
No,
Africa was totally
I
green.
know, no. I'm not talking about the coolness. I'm not even going to get into the climate. I'm saying that the current morphology of Western Central Africans and people that we descend from, right? We don't know what those people actually looked like
Okay.
going back 30,000 years. The oldest
I,
thing that we have is Ansela Man, right? That has our current morphology, and that's around 10,000 years old. It is not as old. So when you say African, we don't know how the original Africans look. You can't assume that the original Africans looked like Western Central Africans. That's even
I,
wrong to assume that.
yeah.
Go ahead.
I would agree with you on that, and I also go stick my neck on the line. To, the further back we go in time, 300,000 years ago, everybody looked the same that call themselves Homo sapiens sapien because
Well,
the
we no,
population
we can't even say that. We can't even say that
three hundred
because
thousand years ago when Homo
three
sapiens sapien
hundred
just arrived.
three
Three
hundred
hundred thousand.
thousand. No, listen, three hundred
Yeah.
thousand years ago, the Homo sapien was mixing with other archaic groups. So it was different pockets of Homo sapiens who were mixing with
Oh,
different archaic human beings. So certain groups probably looked at different than other groups according to the archaic humans that they
all
were
right.
actually mixing with.
All right. But the ones who weren't mixing would have almost been
All of them
unified.
was. You can't name a population of Homo sapiens who wasn't mixing with archaic groups. They lived side by side beside them. And they probably couldn't even tell the difference the same way we mix with Europeans and South Asian.
Chinese
You know what I
and
mean? The differences
Vietnamese and
probably been
Russian.
like that, right? We even made it with Neanderthals. That shows you that we just see humanity in each other. We don't see, you dig what I'm saying? We don't see
Right.
something that is not worth mating back with, if that
Right.
even makes sense.
Yeah. No, no, I understand. Thanks for that lesson.
Mm.
I understand that. That I wasn't even thinking of it this week. That early man 300,000 years ago did not really distinguish, think about the other groups as less than himself. He had no problem reproducing with them.
Right. Well, we don't know how they tribalism is real everywhere. So more than likely that those groups of people had forms of tribalism then too, right? Um, but it wasn't deep enough for them not to mate with other people, right?
Hmm.
Just like during
Right.
slavery, they said that we were completely distinct from white people, but they still mated with us. You feel me? After all the shit
Yeah.
that they said about us, they still found a way to have sex with us. Right? So it wasn't as deep. So it was deep socially, but physically it wasn't that deep. Right?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
I guess I
So
guess it's
James ain't
James.
clicked back on with his source.
Yeah.
I think he ran for the hills.
See, this is the thing about you were saying the same thing earlier about source criticism, right?
Uh huh.
A lot of times I find in this community that people put sources up to say one thing, and when you go through the source, it's not saying what they're saying. And I'm
Facts.
not saying that's what James is doing, but if I call you on it, you should be able to show me where it says what you're saying.
Yeah. Um I think he got a little happy, right?
Hmm.
Because in this community, like I said, most of the things that we say, we think that it's that we can say it, and since it's been said so many times that it becomes acceptable. You feel me? Like certain things we don't. This is the first time that Diop shit has actually got pushback. See, most people didn't know that you could actually push back on Diop's position very hard. It was already laid out by modern scholarship, right? They never agreed with Diop, right? But we agreed. We never looked into, you dig what I'm saying, whether his theories and hypotheses was accepted. We was told the story about Diop and them, and we just went with it, right? Now, like I grew up believing Diop and them was uh right on and exact, right? Not until I got around Unc and them that I realized that it was actually critiques uh on them that was sufficient, that held up, right? Um, I didn't know that until I got around Unc and them. You dig what I'm saying? And this was only a couple years ago. So for the most part, most people don't hear that Diop and them, right? It's only a few channels that's actually talking about or critiquing that old information and those old scholars. It's only a couple channels that actually dare to do it, right? So, and these channels that dare to do it is small channels, right? We don't get the viewership of a Sinetta platform and all of that, right? So it's more Diop and them um, supporters and propagators getting more views than the channels that's actually would give pushback in opposition to the things that Diop and them put forth, right? So this is a smaller community, even inside of a small community called the conscious community.
Yeah, yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So I mean that's the main issue right there. Yeah.
Contrarian thinker says he can point to the timestamp of what James was saying. So I'm waiting for him to post that.
Yeah.
I listened to that. I listened to that show, and they were unable to find it. The timestamp, other than the guy, other than what the writer said. The writer said something about overwhelmingly, and that was the argument. And them said, what was overwhelmingly, and nobody could prove what it was. What part of it was? What was the overwhelming argument?
Yeah, but that's not what James says. James says he had overwhelming evidence.
No, if the evidence was, we would have had that evidence today. We would have had that evidence today,
If it
right?
was
Because no way
overwhelming,
that evidence, yes, no way that evidence would have gone. So what? He took it with him? Was it the Holy Grail? And he
if
went
it
and
was
hid it?
overwhelming, it overturned the paradigm at the time. At least they would have to accept it because it's overwhelming.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like I said, they never really got pushback on Diop and them. I think the pseudo killers gave a lot of pushback on Dr. Ben and Chancellor Williams. You dig what I'm saying? So he was able to flush out that there was a lot of holes in their shit. You know what I mean? From just the amount of bombardment that we gave Unc every day, right? The stuff that y'all used to see on the channel, right, was a small compared. We used to start 6 o'clock in the morning on a text group, just firing on Unc all day, right? He was in like we used to surround Unc and just try to whoop his ass every day with that old ass information, right? So I mean, like, you know, and he did good for the most part, right? But
Mhm.
you know, I feel like we scraped him up a lot. Also, you dig what I'm saying? It's just I feel like he had a better command of being a soulful voice, right? He knew how to handle YouTube a little bit better than us, right?
Mhm.
So he was able to get his points out a little bit more clear because we was new. But in our goddamn chat, oh, we used to wear Unc ass out. You dig what I'm saying? And he used to fare better when we went live because he had years of advantage on his side from speaking and going over sources live. So he used to get us live, but we used to get him in the back. But we used to
They
get
used
him
to get
every
him
day.
afterward. All right. The other day I was watching a show on Garfield, a debate with Garfield with the Hebrew Israelite. And what I've realized is that um, the game has changed when it comes to even the Hebrew. I did not I did not agree with everything he said, but his presentation, Gorilla Hebrew, how he presented himself, how he carried himself in the debate, how prepared he approached the thing.
He did good.
Show
He
me,
did good. He did good.
yes, how he
He did a hell of
approached
a
it.
good job.
It's a, he preparation approach everything
Mhm.
because I think that Richard Carrier came in and said this would be a walkover, and Gorilla Hebrew said no, you have to come more than with your word of mouth now because you're not dealing with. I might not be a PhD, but I'm not going to take you lightly. And I thought Richard Carrier took him lightly, and I found it disrespectful. I found it disrespectful that Richard Carrier came and took Gorilla Hebrew lightly. And
Yeah,
that's why I give Gorilla Hebrew the win. Because he
yeah,
came
poor
prepared
sourcing,
for a
I,
poor,
debate.
I
it
don't
was
agree
poor
with that.
sourcing and everything.
I
Sources
don't
and
agree with that,
everything.
stupid.
Yes, he came with sources, he came
I
with
watched the
everything.
debate. I didn't agree with that.
What
Oh,
you say?
did Richard Carrier come prepared?
I didn't think he was really prepared. I think he had information, he had stuff put together, but I don't think he was super prepared. But to say he took him lightly and it was disrespectful, no, I don't agree with that part.
No, he took him lightly. He took him lightly. When somebody comes, because you don't play with your food, Google Scholar. If you and I are going to debate on any topic, you don't play with your food. It means that
No,
you
it's
come
not that.
prepared and with a presentation for your audience, right? But he
Yeah, but
came
no,
to say,
no,
I am a scholar on this. I am Richard Carrier.
no, still please. These people debate, when they debate, they don't use slides, presentation slides all the time like we do in this
Mhm.
community. I've seen him debate um what's his name, the Christian doctor, and
Oh,
they had a PowerPoint, but it wasn't like slides like we do, right? You have to remember that this is a published author. He has works on the subject. He has a book, a peer-reviewed book on the subject. So he's making the argument. He has one or two slides, but he's not thinking he has to bring like a whole presentation um, to present the argument, right? Um, I understand when you say he underestimated Gorilla Hebrew, but to say it was disrespectful, yeah, that is a stretch.
okay. All right. I will take back the disrespect part because now that I think about it, how they debate each other, the kind of conversation, how they debate each other in some levels is different. But I believe that if he was supposed to debate Gorilla Hebrew again, he would come differently.
Yeah, I could see
And
that.
yeah, and the reason why I don't think he was aware of what it is. And Garfield, for his first real debate, in terms of on the channel like that, Garfield chose somebody good. Gorilla Hebrew was good. Apart from the fact that he was falling off in the end, although he referred to Dr. Carey as Dick, we understand that Dick is a nickname for Richard, Tricky Dick, because I know that he wanted to, when he said Dick, I knew that he wanted to use the terminology Tricky Dick, as though it was used for Richard Nixon. But I saw him pull back. And I said, thank you, Gorilla, for maintaining some level of decorum and professionalism. Because calling the man Dick first, I know that you're referring to Tricky Dick. Anybody who have any semblance of history will know that that's why you called him Dick. Because you almost said that he's tricky in his approach where he disregards certain things and he overlook it and he doesn't answer any questions. That's why you wanted to call him Dick. I was saw through
I
it.
also thought,
I, but,
I also thought that the first part of the debate, um, Gorilla Hebrew was just appealing to authority. I thought as the debate went on in the middle part, he
yeah.
got better. His argument, he started to make actual arguments. But in the
Right.
beginning, all he was doing
No.
is listing off people that didn't agree with Richard Carey.
Yeah,
That
no,
in my, just appealing to authority.
yeah, I
If
know
you
that's what he was doing. But
yeah.
remember, his argument is not the strongest. Right? His argument because what Richard should have done, Dr. Carey should have, is distinguish between the historical Jesus and the biblical Jesus, and the amount of historical Jesus that might have existed. But he does that in his book, so he didn't go through it because what he should say to the audience and listen, I am not going through the ones and twos because if you know me and you're watching this debate, that means you have some history of my book. And you should have go and research the debate before you come to watch the debate. Because this is not a class. This is not 4 credits. You must come to the debate with something. But it was good. It was good. And it had 2,600, 2,000, almost 3,000 people watching,
Mhm.
which is a high number. And I almost said to him, say, careful, you're stepping on toes now because this look very professional. This and the guy who was the moderator was good.
Mhm.
Overall, I had to give it an A in terms of how it was presented
But
professionally.
why would you say stepping on toes?
You go your business. You go away. Go away, Google. Go
No, but
away.
everybody in the community should be saying, okay, this is the benchmark. This is how we got to approach it from now on. That should be the
Google.
conversation.
Google, go away, Google.
It shouldn't be like
Google, you are worse than you're worse than Sheffrey. You
no.
are worse.
I mean, Sheffrin should look at that and say, okay, so if I'm doing a debate on my channel, this is the benchmark. This is how I want it to go, or better than this. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be. There shouldn't be no hate because somebody did that. I don't know.
Listen,
You either strive to match that or you say I want to do even better than that. That's how
it was
you approach
the presentation was a benchmark debate. It wasn't an interruption. It wasn't a name calling. The two gentlemen handled themselves professionally, apart from Gorilla Hebrew insinuating that the man is tricking. Apart from that, it was a beautiful debate. The decorum was beautiful. Everything was beautiful. It took it up to. It's a debate that you could share with friends. And so listen, you can watch this debate. Even if you don't understand it, get a gist of what we're trying to achieve.
Amir, you back? What up?
Yeah. My fault, brother. I was just trying to say earlier, and I don't know if I don't want to cut your wisdom, brother, brothers that's on here. If you guys are done, I just wanted to add on.
no, go ahead. Take
Yeah.
it one doing it.
I
Yeah.
just want to give a clear understanding that North Africans, Diop was wrong about a lot of stuff. We got to accept that. But I do respect him because he did go through the field and he actually had a credentials as a scientist. He worked in that field, but he had misinformation when it comes to Egyptians. Now we have DNA to give us a clear understanding of the populations that make up North Africa. And for a long time, we've been saying that they was invaders, they were Arabs, and these people are just as ancient as people that's south of the Sahara, right? They are. They have very ancient old mixtures. That's what they are. So when you follow these people, we're looking at skin because someone's dark skin does not mean that you have less Neanderthal or more Neanderthal. People in India are dark. and they have a lot of Neanderthal genes and Denisovan genes. The Aboriginal Australians, they're dark skinned and they have Neanderthal genes and Denisovan genes. Matter of fact, I think the people in the Solomon Islands next to Australia, they have a higher percentage of of Neanderthal DNA, and they're dark. So dark skin don't mean anything. And light skin is not given to us because of Neanderthals. That's what James thinks. James thinks that people are light skinned because of Neanderthals. He don't even understand how gene and skin work, yo. It's crazy. But North Africans are genetically distinct from sub-Saharan Africans, and the Natufians and the Ibero-Maurutians, they had a splitting and separation in genetic composition, and it stops at Libya. So you found the Ibero-Mauritian signature going from Morocco, the Teparats or the Ibero-Mauritian signature, before they mix with Neolithic Anatolian farmers or whatever, or whatever. But you find a signature of Ibero-Mauritian DNA that stretches from Morocco all the way to the western corridor of Libya. When you get to the eastern corridor of Libya, the Egyptian population becomes more Natufian-like, from Egypt all the way through the Levant. So when you look at the Natufian DNA, who had a higher percentage of basal Eurasian, basal Eurasians didn't have as much Neanderthal in them as crown Eurasians. Between the two.
We
Crown
need to put you on
Eurasians,
we need to give you a debate on Garfield channel. But we can't use James. We can't use
hey,
James. But who in the community? I think,
hey, bro,
and I don't want you
it
beat
ain't
up
really,
Reggie. You'd beat
it ain't really
Reggie.
no.
You'd beat Reggie up and down the
I mean,
town. So we can't use Reggie.
I'm willing to debate anybody.
Yeah, but to make it interesting, we couldn't put Reggie up. You'll beat him to smithereens.
Yeah,
Smash not going to beat you.
No, it's
listen,
Reggie. It's Reggie.
Randy got a lot of good information too, but he also got some misinformation. I'll say that publicly.
Who,
I
Reggie?
like, I like the work he does, but Reggie told me on Sabia's show that the modern Egyptians are Arabs. They're not
They're invaders. He
ancient
said
Egyptians.
that's his
That's
premise. That's his
misinformation.
premise.
What's that?
That's Reggie's foundational premise is that the modern Egyptians are invaders.
Yes, and that's
Yeah,
misinformation.
that's a lie.
That would be a good debate, still, but you're going to beat the brakes off Reggie. Everybody
Yeah,
know that.
definitely.
So
I could.
so so
Most of the people that's shooting for Black Egypt don't stand a chance against me. I mean, I'm just keeping it real. It doesn't make sense. And I also don't fight for white Egypt either, because I don't believe in that either.
Right.
I let North Africans be North Africans. I'm not making them European, and I'm not making them black. Period.
but you're making them Mediterranean by calling them North Africans. You are
They could
Yeah.
be
making them
classified.
Mediterranean.
They could be classified as a set of Mediterranean people, but you have different ethnic groups in the Mediterranean border. So you got to be careful with
Yes,
that too.
Hmm.
yeah,
So
but
for example,
although you,
I give you an example. When you look at 23andMe, right? And according to their DNA, the PCAs that they use, autosomally, it only goes back 500 years. Haplogroups have a larger run because haplogroups don't recombine. So it's easier to sequence the haplogroup because it don't recombine. So they got a larger, deep ancestral lineage. But that only makes up less than 1% of your DNA. But let's look at the population in North Africa. They call it MENA, Middle Eastern North Africa. So all the North Africans will have a shared affinity with populations in the Middle East and Near East, even though they are close to Southern Europeans because they're Mediterranean people. Southern Europeans tend to have more Caucasus hunter-gatherer or the Yemeniya insertion in them. So there's a distinction, even though Egyptians and Moroccans are close to Southern Europeans because of the old Anatolian DNA, the layer, they still have a distinction because of time. And also the population in Southern Europe have a larger Yemeniya ancestral component. North Africans don't have a large component of their Yemeniya. They still speak an Afro-Asiatic language. They don't have the Indo-European language, even though you do find it now because there's been a lot of backwards and forward. But if I take you back in ancient times and dig up an Egyptian mummy, he's going to probably be more Middle Eastern, Northeastern, Omatic, because they did have Omatic DNA in them absorbed. A lesser percentage of that, you find like, when I look at these PCAs, you might find 6 to 3% Nilotic, but the larger cluster of their DNA is highly Middle Eastern, Natufian, highly Natufian, and other layers. When you go into Southern Europe, the signatures become distinct even though there's a shared affinity through the Anatolian population. Like when you look at the Aegeans or the Minoans, all these people came from the Anatolian farmers. And when you look at the population that crossed into North Africa, go ahead.
Stop. Sheffrin, what do you think about it? Ngozi versus Reggie. Should we petition for that debate?
Yeah, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Reggie got a lot of smoke for Ngozi though. He, he get hot every time Ngozi get on the panel.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
Wait,
but
all
in
hey,
a
good.
professional debate setting,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
I,
Definitely. Definitely.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
we could. I'm willing to debate anybody regarding this Black Egypt thing, and anybody in the sense of them not being Africans. They are Africans, and I don't fight for a white Egypt either. Even if I say white North Africa, Middle Eastern North African white isn't European white,
Right.
so that's another thing too. So I'm just saying,
Yeah, that's a fact.
No, yeah, that's a fact. Nobody not disputing that. We're not disputing that the Egyptians were in Africa. Everybody said that. But you can be Africans and you can be Mediterranean at the same time. Right?
absolutely,
It can be both.
absolutely,
Right?
absolutely.
let's stop this. Let's stop this. Who said that Egypt was not in Africa? I bet you can. I bet everybody's gonna say, well, all the Egyptomaniacs are gonna say, Dr. Awash said that,
No, because
and
Africa, the
I
word
read the
African is a
Dr.
dog
Awash
whistle
statement.
word. When you hear
No, I
African,
read the
Google
Dr.
scholar, be
Awash
truthful. When
statement.
you hear the word African, what color do you match with it?
No,
When you hear
but
the word
two peas,
African, are you supposed?
two peas. You're running past where I'm going. I'm saying
Mm-hmm.
people keep making the claim that people are saying that Egypt is not in Africa. Nobody is saying that. Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody who keep repeating that, they're just lying at this point.
No, nobody's saying that. But when people use the word Africans, if I'm supposed to say to my to a 15-year-old African, describe an African, they're going to say black. So African, the word African can be used disingenuously too,
Yeah. No, I
right?
get
Could I add
that.
a piece,
It
guys?
can be used.
The imagery when you say African, even for myself, you say African, even subconsciously you think black, even without thinking about it. Let's
You're
be
not thinking
real about
about an Egyptian or Ethiopian or a
it. Not really.
Somalian,
Well, you mainly
Right. Could I
thinking
add a
about
piece, guys?
people that look like you and me.
right?
No, can you hear me? Stu piece. Can I add a
Yeah, if you
piece?
can, go ahead, brother.
Um, yeah, Somalis are not Egyptians. I wanted to tell Astro as he's trying to move Egypt out of Africa. What I'm gonna say is, go get the book I recommended, The Ancient Africa: Global History to 3000 CE by Christopher Ehret. Okay? When you buy the book, I want you to go to page 88 on chapter 5 and start reading. I'm not gonna read to you because you're not my son. The language,
No,
the
man, no,
proto
all
language.
right. Since you bring, no, stop. Since you bring the information, give us a synopsis. Drag up the book and read a
Synopsis.
part of it. Many persons here
I'll give,
cannot afford the book, so give us a
no,
synopsis,
I'll give you a synopsis of reading. Okay?
right?
The language
Yeah.
actually comes from the proto language, Erythric language. Originally comes from where? It comes from Africa, East Africa. You can go to the book and read it. If you have the book, please check it
That's
out
the
right now.
Proto-Afro-Asiatic.
Language, yes, that's where it originally comes from. And
Yeah,
what it
and
does
that
is
makes
it
sense.
travels upwards.
That
It
makes sense.
travels upwards, and then it goes to the Levant. That's why you have most of the Afro-Asiatic languages in Africa, East Africa, and that's why you have about one or two in the Levant in the Middle East.
And
Yeah,
that's
no, that
But
Arabic.
makes total
African,
sense. I don't know why somebody would think that Afro-Asiatic or as it origins in Asia. They would have called it something Africa. I mean,
Asia
this,
apparently. Yes.
yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, like you said, the majority of Afro-Asiatic languages is in Africa, and the oldest Afro-Asiatic languages that we can recognize are also in Africa. So it makes sense.
Only the people who want to move Egypt out of Africa, or the ones that are trying to attack Black Americans to do some kind of insults, are saying that. So right now, I'm just trying to let them know, and I'm not trying to say Kushatek. Kushatek is an Afro-Asiatic language. They all come from the same place. They split long time ago, but originally, where did it come from? Africa. So Egypt is an African place. So people from the Levant, please stop trying to hit on Black Americans. It's kind of insulting at this point.
Appreciate that, bro.
Mm.
Appreciate that. Yeah, that's a lot. I think, when we do it, we're just trying to correct the information and to correct our community from looking bad. But when other people do it, it is insulting, right? It
Yeah,
is insulting, right?
And I
Um,
wouldn't do that. As a Black man from East Africa,
right.
I wouldn't try to insult you guys. I try to respect it, understanding like the roles we had in slavery on our end. The fact that we weren't acting like your brothers for a long time until this day we're still dealing with that kind of stuff. So when I see outsiders trying to do the same, I gotta step in and say hell no, because I step back and listen when you guys speak and try to understand where you're coming from. And I think they should do the same thing. And if somebody else on a different channel allows them to kind of get away with being a little bit racist, it doesn't mean that they can go do that at every single channel they go to. With all due respect.
That's a fact. That's a fact. All right, y'all. I'm gone for the night. I appreciate everybody. I got to get up and go to work in the morning. It is damn near 1:30 a.m. in the morning here. You know what I'm saying?
Just
I
Sheffrin, one
can't
thing
wait
before
to
you go.
come back.
What happened to the once a week show? Not even once a week. It's
I
like anytime the spirit move me. Is
no
that what we're
no.
doing?
I
Is
actually
that
got.
spirit move
Hold on.
podcast?
No, Stu B's. I actually got busy. Um, I'm sending my daughter off first year of college, right? So
Okay.
I'm going through something. You know what I mean? That's my baby.
Life
You know what I
happens.
mean? She's
Life
Okay.
growing
happens.
up. This is my
Mm.
last summer with her as a child. She go away to college
Okay.
next week. You dig what I'm saying?
And she might
So
not come back home.
yeah.
We
So
not even
I've
get
been
to
I've
talk
been
about the
dealing with that.
fights.
Huh?
We not even get to talk about the. We not even get to talk about the fights. The little
Oh,
Japanese guy fight, and then your big fight with your boxer get his head knocked off clean. That dude
oh
need to
yeah, and
retire.
Joshua just for. Oh, we can talk about that tomorrow. Look, if I can get on early, then we can
Yeah.
get all that in. But if I
Yeah.
don't, just remember when you come on, we can always get it in. All right.
Yeah, because we had
Lo-
five
Long
good
as you don't
fights. That
forget.
in the yeah,
Long as you
yeah,
don't
we
forget.
had some good fights.
That's right. They was a good fight. I
Okay.
like Anthony Joshua. All right, y'all. I'm gone. I appreciate y'all. You know what it is, Chef Madness. Like, subscribe. I saw it. I appreciate you coming through. Stupies, you know
Nah,
what
bro.
it is. Google Scholar, James, Amir. I appreciate all y'all, and we out.